Immortal Cultivation with the Chip. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 101 Soul Burial Abyss. Link. The breeding plan has been designed. Please purchase the corresponding larvae and spiritual materials immediately. The faster you act, the better impression you can leave on Guxi that you are capable. Guxi must have many eyes and ears in the blood-clothed sect, providing real-time information. If Chen Mo can take action on the day he receives the task and pass it on to Guxi, it will be a good plus point. Guxi occupies the majority of the cultivation resources of the Gu grass lineage, and the remaining soup and water are divided by 3 direct disciples and 1 registered disciple. Chen Mo does not want to share with others, so he can only try to please his master and strive for more annual money to get a little more. Therefore, Chen Mo rushed to the blood-clothed building without stopping to exchange for the corresponding larvae and spiritual materials. This mission cannot be reimbursed by Guxi. Only after cultivating qualified adults and selling them to Guxi can the funds be recovered and some hard-earned money can be earned. Moreover, Guxi must be given priority. Even if there are inner and outer disciples who want to buy them at a 20% premium, they cannot be sold, because the Gushi breeding farm is protected by Guxi. Only after feeding this evil tiger can it be sold. This is the price that makes fellow disciples dare not attack the Gushi breeding farm. Chen Mo has been mentally prepared for this. Fortunately, Guxi is not too greedy. The purchase price he gave is quite appropriate, and it also leaves Chen Mo with profit space. Otherwise it would be purely exploiting his disciples. After the first batch of ghost fire ants were sold, the small ecological cycle system of the Gushi breeding farm has been running in a good way. If too many foreign species are introduced rashly, it will destroy the fragile ecology. Therefore, Chen Mo strictly controls the purchase quantity and purchase varieties, and only selects 50 fire ants, rot ants, and digging ants each, and introduces them into the base pond ecosystem. They are all close relatives of ghost fire ants, with similar habits, and there is no possibility of fighting each other. They are also very adaptable to the dark environment underground. The only problem is that they do not eat Yinling mulberry leaves, and need to purchase fresh spiritual materials every day to feed them. Of course, in order not to waste the Yinling mulberry trees that filled up a whole room, Chen Mo still cultivated ghost fire ant larvae, and the number tripled compared to before. Link. The artificial ecological environment is not as harmonious and stable as nature, and requires the host to intervene from time to time. This breeding plan is the best choice at present, and the estimated income is. Chen Mo was too lazy to listen to the chip talking about any more income. Anyway, he had entered the wealthy class with no worries about food and clothing. The number of low-level spiritual stones was just a number to him. Unless there were really a lot of them like a mountain or a sea, Chen Mo could use a large amount of low-level and medium-level spiritual stones to smash out a few spiritual pills to help break through the bottleneck. But in this way, even Master Guzai would be tempted by his wealth, which was not beautiful. In fact, before becoming a disciple, Lu Zhen'er had hinted whether Chen Mo was willing to hand over the breeding plan of insects and beasts that he designed. This was Guzai's idea to promote the breeding plan through mass production with the power of a sect, but Chen Mo refused because the scale was large. The number of accidents increased, and it was easy to lose money. Guxi is also an experienced insect breeder. After learning about the plan submitted by Chen Mo, he also recognized his reply and did not blindly expand the scale of the Gurum breeding farm. Therefore, the current Gurum breeding farm is equivalent to the private property of the Gu grass lineage, and the output is also given priority to the Gu grass lineage. With Guxi's strength, no one in the sect dares to come to ask for money. After being busy for most of the day, Chen Mo finally settled the larvae that had just been introduced. Sweat was all over his forehead. Even with his 7.8 essence, he felt a burst of weakness in his limbs. The larvae are delicate and weak, and too difficult to serve. When Chen Mo placed them, he not only had to condense his spiritual energy arms to protect their vital points, but also considered their comfort during the move to prevent the larvae from nausea and dizziness. The larval stage is the most vulnerable and critical period in the life of insects and beasts. If they have a little disease, they are likely to die. In nature, fire ants, rot ants, and digging ants are not very powerful insects and beasts. They are only at the high level of key training when they mature. Therefore, in order to reproduce, They often give birth in large numbers. Even if they are unable to take care of their offspring, they still give birth in large numbers. In the end, there will always be offspring that survive to ensure the continuation of the population. Therefore, the cost of purchasing larvae is not of the same magnitude as the price of adults. However, in order to reduce every cent of breeding cost, the chip does not allow any larvae to die even if they are wholesaled. Therefore, each larva has an exclusive breeding plan. Chen Mo was very exhausted after being busy meticulously, and lamented that breeding was not easy. In fact, insects and beasts with higher cultivation are easier to raise. First of all, their larvae are strong and easy to raise. The strong ones even have the strength of high-level key training at birth. Secondly, in nature, insects and beasts at the top of the food chain have few natural enemies, and the probability of larvae being hunted is relatively low, and the survival rate is extremely high. However, all these insects and beasts were trained by Gu Zai himself, so he was confident to hand them over to Chen Mo. If the insects and beasts in the supernatural power stage got angry and swallowed him alive, there would be no cheap disciples to breed insects and beasts for the Gu Xiao lineage. After sorting and settling all the larvae, Chen Mo finally had the opportunity to do his own thing, receive the only benefit of the inner disciples. After joining the Gu Xiao lineage, Chen Mo was already considered a direct descendant of the branch lineage, with a higher status than the inner disciples, and the treatment was not even on the same level. The latest novel was first published on the 69th book bar. But the only benefit for the inner disciples was a priceless opportunity. From the top leaders of the Blood Robe sect to the ordinary disciples, if they did not make great contributions or become cultivators in the condensation pill stage, they could only enjoy it once in their lifetime. Of course, Chen Mo was unwilling to give up this rare opportunity. Holding the brand new Gu Room token, he headed for a secret place, Soul Burial Abyss. The word evil that had just been engraved on the Gu Room token flickered slightly, emitting a red light. On its surface, a faint arrow formed, constantly changing direction, guiding Chen Mo in the direction of advance. Under the sea cliff where the Blood Robe Gate's mountain gate was located, there were numerous passages that extended in all directions. Chen Mo only knew which road led to the Blood Robe building. Soul Burial Abyss, if it weren't for the token's guidance, he would never have been able to find it. All the way was winding, passing through countless forks and secret doors. The chip also captured the fluctuations of the formation's spiritual energy near these transportation hubs. It should be a defensive formation that concealed or even distorted the underground passage. In terms of sophistication, it was far better than the soul-calling formation that guarded the Gu Room. A single leaf could tell the coming of autumn. Chen Mo vaguely guessed how precious the qualification to enter the Soul Burial Abyss was, and even regretted that he came here with only the third-level cultivation of key training, and was afraid that he would not be able to maximize the benefits. Host, please rest assured. The harvest in the Soul Burial Abyss does not depend on the level of cultivation. The only criterion is whether or not you have generated divine consciousness. In addition, Gu Zai is a cultivator in the divine power stage and must have entered the Soul Burial Abyss. Since he has given the host the token with the word evil, it means that the host is qualified to enter the Soul Burial Abyss. Chapter 102, Bad Luck? The chip's well-reasoned analysis gave Chen Mo a reassurance, and he followed the arrows and continued to go deeper. Strangely enough, the records about the Soul Burial Abyss in the Sutra library were vague, saying only that it was an ancient relic, and that lucky inner disciples could also obtain a good treasure in it. Recently, Zhang Qianshan, a newcomer among the inner disciples, found a top-notch magic puppet in the Soul Burial Abyss, the green-haired flying skull. After a little refining, it had various supernatural powers such as defense, carrying objects, and flying. It was a multi-purpose object, and ordinary talismans were no match for it. Chen Mo had also asked how to get the best harvest in the Soul Burial Abyss, but the answers of many of his fellow disciples revealed a strong sense of unreliability. As soon as an unlucky guy stepped into the Soul Burial Abyss, he was hit by the dense yin spirit energy from nowhere, which made his limbs stiff and his consciousness sluggish, and he was directly teleported out by the evil token. Not only did he not catch a single hair, but he also fell seriously ill after returning. It took him a full year to recover his blood and ki. A lucky man had a wild idea. He closed his eyes and ran in the Soul Burial Abyss until he hid a cold object and was teleported out by the evil token. When he opened his eyes, he saw a burly white bone demon puppet, which was 5 big and 3 strong and had amazing bones. As long as he captured an evil spirit and injected it into the demon puppet, he could control it to kill people everywhere. There were also superstitious demon cubs who burned incense and bathed for half a month, and then worshipped the ancestors of the blood-clothed sect for thousands of years before stepping into the soul burial abyss. It seemed that his piety moved the heavens, and he picked up a broken hand, cut off one of his arms, and grafted the broken hand onto himself. He actually had a right arm that was not afraid of axes and had amazing power. Horizontal ellipsis. After the chip collected and analyzed the gossips and rumors, it finally came to a conclusion that was of no use at all. The gains in the soul burial abyss depended on luck and fate. The chip had no solution. It was really that it could not find any commonality between any two things, so it could not deduce a universal treasure hunting method. Since ancient times, rare treasures have been owned by those with virtue and luck. Chen Mo muttered to himself. In the demon sect that only believes in the size of a fist, not luck, there is actually an alien called the soul burial abyss, and its magical features cannot even be discovered by the Supreme in the condensation pill stage. It is also strange. Finally, Chen Mo arrived at the edge of the soul burial abyss. Looking up, the terrain in front of him kept lowering, like a vast and boundless basin. However, 1,000 steps away, it was blocked by thick black fog, and even with Chen Mo's eyesight, he could not see what was in it clearly. There was no one here, and it was as quiet as a cemetery. Chen Mo's weak breathing became the only sound source in the soul burial abyss area, causing Chen Mo to hold his breath involuntarily, not daring to disturb the silence. The word evil shone brightly, flying out from the surface of the Gurum token, hovering above Chen Mo's head, emitting a scarlet light that enveloped his entire body. Exploration time, half an hour, time is up. Those who enter the soul burial abyss will be automatically teleported out. A line of bloody words appeared in front of Chen Mo. Time was precious, so Chen Mo pushed off the ground with his feet and rushed into the soul burial abyss. No matter how strange and bizarre the way to obtain the desired things was, there had been no cases of killing entrants in the soul burial abyss for thousands of years. The worst was just lying in bed for a year or two, so Chen Mo was not worried about his own safety at all, and he searched in the soul burial abyss carelessly. What he saw was a bleak scene: broken walls, withered branches and leaves, rotten bones. Everywhere was filled with the smell of death, decay, and ruin. As Chen Mo walked, he could feel the activity of his 7 yin spirit veins. He felt that the effect of practicing in this environment with rich yin spirit energy was no worse than that of the cave in Guxi. Chip, analyze the surrounding environment, select the 10 items with the strongest spirit energy field, and sort them by quality. Chen Mo issued the order, but the chip did not respond at all, just like the previous 2 times when he was attacked by the evil spirit. Even though he had prepared himself mentally before coming, Chen Mo was still a little flustered. He knew that he had a bad face and always had bad luck. Even if he covered his whole body tightly with a shroud, he could not change this fact. Without the chip to give reference opinions, Chen Mo strongly suspected that he would leave with nothing. Alice, every time I encounter something related to evil spirits, the chip will fail. We said that we should cultivate immortality scientifically and believe in science, but why does it become unscientific when we encounter evil spirits? Chen Mo sighed deeply, but he also knew that he couldn't blame the chip. According to the experience of his ancestors, many of the demon puppets in the soul burial abyss have their own evil spirits. Although they will not actively attack those who enter, their own soul force field will unconsciously affect the surrounding environment. The chip lost contact, but Chen Mo was fine, which was a great blessing. The latest novels are first published on the 69th book bar. As he walked along, Chen Mo stopped from time to time, wanting to pick up a few items that looked good. For example, a bronze double-eared ceramic bottle, a golden rib, a piece of pyroxene emitting a faint light. But as soon as his hands touched them, Chen Mo felt an invisible and intangible resistance. No matter how he stimulated his blood and used magic, he could not move them at all. According to the experience and lessons of the predecessors, this is a manifestation of not having a chance to have treasures and not being able to afford them. Most of the objects produced by the soul burial abyss conceal evil spirits. With the help of the power of the evil spirits' souls, the containers have stronger power and are more spiritual to operate. Even if the objects selected by Chen Mo are not the top magic puppets, such as flying skulls, white bone demons, zombies, and yaksha, they are also good outsiders and symbols of the identity of demon cubs. People in the demon sect also pay attention to their appearance when traveling. The more evil the aura is, the more it shows that they are powerful and are not afraid of the righteous people slaying demons and exorcising demons. Dressing up in a sinister and weird way is the most unpresentable. Those who are a little more particular will drive the notorious demonic monsters such as the ghost fire ants, the human-faced bats, and the blood-bearing flowers. However, the most high-end demons must have a demon puppet. When going out, following a flesh and blood demon behind you, or stepping on a flying skull, is the real demonic energy. This is just like a true sword cultivator who must step on a flying sword and travel the world with a sword. Chen Mo, the requirements are not high, just to find a lowest level demon puppet in the soul burial abyss. Even if its driving force is the evil spirit, it doesn't matter if you have to capture it yourself. However, after trying dozens of times in a row, no item is what he likes. Seeing that the blood light above his head is getting dimmer and dimmer, and time is about to run out, Chen Mo is so anxious. However, objective facts do not change because of Chen Mo's subjective will. Chapter 103 Crying and Laughing Mask. I can't lift it. I can't push it. I can't touch it. One after another, the strange objects rejected Chen Mo's touch. The most outrageous one, a black and gray brick, directly erupted with a powerful wave of air, blowing Chen Mo away. The tragic fact proved that Chen Mo had no fate with every object on the roadside. Even the most tattered bottomless straw sandals resisted Chen Mo's approach. Feeling depressed, Chen Mo remembered the saying about the blessings and fate of the soul burial abyss. A disciple with bad luck would not encounter an object that moved him after half an hour, while a disciple with good luck could easily pick up several objects. However, it was limited by a law in the dark. As long as the entrant was moved, the blood-colored evil character on his head would immediately teleport him and the object out of the soul burial abyss. Therefore, no matter how good the luck was, no matter how favored the weak water 3000 was to the entrant, he could only take a scoop and leave the soul burial abyss. According to the analysis of the chip, this kind of sect rumor is a 100% false proposition. However, the scenes of rejection in front of him made Chen Mo doubt that fortune is the truth. "Chip, come out and confront me, give me an explanation." Chen Mo roared in his mind, but did not get a response. He could only continue to wonder in the soul burial abyss sadly. Is it really my bad luck, and little good fortune? Chen Mo couldn't hold back his anger and cursed. He didn't believe it in his heart, and even felt that he was lucky and blessed. Soul chip, without a great opportunity, will it fall on my head out of thin air? This is Chen Mo's confidence. The chip, this powerful divine object, proves that Chen Mo exudes the breath of a lucky star from head to toe. Black face, black, hey, hey. Because Chen Mo's curse was too loud, layers of echoes actually rang out in the quiet depths of the soul burial abyss. At first, Chen Mo thought it was the echo of blackface and didn't pay much attention to it. However, after dozens of breaths, the sound became distorted and turned into the hee sound of a child crying and laughing. Subconsciously stopping, Chen Mo looked around and found that he was wrapped in thick black fog. With his 4.1 divine essence, he didn't find anything at all. It seems that something terrible and dirty has been brought out. Chen Mo's heart sank. With such changes, none of the various anecdotes about the soul burial abyss that were circulated in the sect were like this. Not daring to move, calling the chip, but getting no response, Chen Mo hated this feeling of powerlessness of waiting to die. The hee sound became stronger and stronger, and Chen Mo's forehead was sweating. He couldn't help but cast an offensive spell. "You said you have a black face, but you can't compare with me." In the black fog, a jumping boy's voice suddenly sounded, and then a mask suddenly appeared, floating 10 inches in front of Chen Mo. The side of the mask facing Chen Mo was an exaggerated smile, with the corners of the eyebrows raised due to extreme joy, and the corners of the mouth stretched to the left and right, almost stretching the width of a palm. This exaggerated smile also had a mysterious magic, and as soon as it appeared, it completely attracted Chen Mo's attention. Its mouth slowly closed, and it seemed that the child's voice just now came from its mouth. Unable to move his eyes away from this weird smile, Chen Mo could only look at it carefully. This was an extremely white face, without a trace of blood, whiter than the purest ice and snow, so that Chen Mo couldn't bear to stare at it with his eyes. Because it would make him feel that he was tainting the purity of this face with his dirty eyes. It's so white, but it wants to compare its face with mine. Is it crazy, or am I blind? Chen Mo has now lost control of his body. Even if there are countless words in his heart that need to be vented, he can't move his lips and spit out a word. I chose the wrong face. I'll change it immediately. Although Chen Mo couldn't speak or move, his bright eyes could speak. The surprise and confusion contained in them were interpreted by the smiling face in the air. It changed its face. The mask rotated 180 degrees with the center of the eyebrows, nose and lips as the axis, revealing its second face. This is a crying face. Although there was no tear, it made Chen Mo feel an indescribable sadness, and an absurd emotion of sympathy with it emerged in his heart. The crying face was very black. The pitch-black color even absorbed the insufficient light in the soul burial abyss. Using black charcoal, black jade, and black stone to describe the color of this crying face was a strong disrespect for the ordinary black. Is this face black enough? Let's compete. The crying face moved its lips and issued an invitation to compete. The eagerness in the words made Chen Mo feel deeply uneasy. The objects in the soul burial abyss were so weird. The light of the word evil did not move, and it was still floating steadily above Chen Mo's head, as if to indicate, this mask that laughs at the front and cries at the back is not an evil thing that eats human souls. The latest novels are first published on 69 Shuba. The mask slowly moved towards Chen Mo to see whose face was darker. 9 inches, 6 inches, 1 inch. Unable to move, Chen Mo could only helplessly watch the mask do whatever it wanted. Soon, the mask fit perfectly on Chen Mo's face. It was cold and breathable, and even his vision was not affected at all. If he could not raise his hand to touch the face, Chen Mo would have suspected that this crying face did not have close contact with him. However, Chen Mo did not find that the other side of the mask, the smiling face, was separated from the crying face, and gently moved around to the back of Chen Mo's head and stuck to it. It was the same fit. Chen Mo did not feel the existence of the smiling face at all. At this time, looking from the outside, Chen Mo had changed a lot. On the front, there was a crying face that was darker than charcoal. At the back of the head, the drooping hair had already fluttered, revealing a smiling face as white as snow. With such a change, the shroud wrapped around Chen Mo did not react at all, and even took the initiative to make way for the smiling face and crying face to settle down calmly. The black and red cloth strips trembled slightly, as if expressing fear. The shroud nourished by Chen Mo's blood and the evil spirit of heaven and earth had a little spirituality, but it was not as fierce as this strange mask. Chen Mo did not have the energy to pay attention to these changes. When the mask covered his face, his consciousness had already arrived in a strange place. Exclamation mark. It should be a replay of the past scene. Chen Mo turned into a soul body and floated in this strange place. He could feel his own existence, but he could not change the plot happening below, so he made the judgment of historical replay. On the ground, the fight was a series of illusory wandering souls in various shapes. A burly middle-aged man, his limbs constantly transformed into various war instruments, tearing the enemy in front of him. The hungry tiger with wings on its back opened its bloody mouth to a width of 10 meters and swallowed a wild boar-shaped wandering soul. But before it could digest, the hungry tiger's stomach bulged, and a big hole was broken from it. The wild boar that had just been swallowed came out. But its fangs became much longer, 3 meters long, and also took the shape of a drill bit. No wonder it could tear through the thick skin and flesh of the hungry tiger condensed by the soul. Chen Mo looked down at the fight below from mid-air and found that each wandering soul had extremely powerful power and was even more skilled in using the soul. Although it was limited by the talent of the soul body, a mountain rat could not become larger than a gray whale, but it could drill into the gray whale's breathing hole by enhancing the sharpness of its teeth and tear its soul body to pieces. As far as Chen Mo could see, the wandering souls he saw were all showing their magical powers, using the strengths of their souls to kill their opponents. As the battle lasted longer and longer, the negative energy around the wandering souls became stronger and stronger, and they already felt like evil spirits. Not bad, the cultivation of evil spirits has reached the time to harvest. A clear voice sounded, and a figure in a gray robe and a sinister aura appeared in front of Chen Mo. Chapter 104 I turned white. The mask on the face of the gray-robed man was exactly the one Chen Mo had seen in the soul burial abyss. However, the sight he showed to others was an exaggerated smile, and the smile on the corner of his mouth made the masked man feel even happier. The masked man, like a ghost, floated in the void. Even though Chen Mo knew that he was a character in the scene of this video, he was shocked by his momentum and had the illusion that his soul would be hooked away by him. The harvest has begun. The masked man took off the mask on his face, revealing a blank face without facial features, and threw the mask down. All the wandering souls in the fight stopped their actions and drilled into the mask like crazy. The black crying face emitted intermittent sobs, and then spit out evil spirits from his mouth, which were scattered everywhere below. The evil aura on each new evil spirit was surprisingly strong. It seems that the crying side of the mask has the strange ability to transform ordinary wandering souls into evil spirits. If it falls into the hands of those with bad intentions, it is very likely to create a gloomy ghostland with no people for thousands of miles. The masked man, no, now it should be called the faceless man, threw away the mask and looked at the scene in front of him quietly, without any extra movements. Although he could not see his expression, Chen Mo could feel the joy in the faceless man's heart. He was horrified and thought, I am afraid that so many wandering souls here are also from his hand. After killing countless lives, he separated their souls from their bodies and confined them to this area, letting them fight each other like poisonous insects. Such cruel and vicious means are far beyond the reach of even the magical master of the blood-clothed sect. Someone came to the door? You're not afraid of death. The cat has been eating vegetarian food for 2 days, and these mice have jumped out again. Well, I'll have to take a look. A talisman suddenly burned, conveying a message to the faceless man. He snorted coldly, flicked his robe, and turned into a wisp of green smoke and left. Only this mask was left, continuing to swallow up wandering souls and evil spirits. The world has changed, and time has passed. The faceless man never appeared again, as if the trouble he encountered was too big, or he was crushed to death by the mice that came to the door. Chen Mo guessed maliciously. After a long time, the crying and laughing mask stopped working, fell into the soil, and the treasure was covered in dust. The evil spirits it transformed also found some corpses, utensils, and dead branches and leaves to live in. As time passed, those with special materials became magic puppets. For some evil spirits, their souls dissipated, leaving only a container shell. The picture shattered like a mirror, and Chen Mo's consciousness returned to his body, and he saw the thick black fog in the soul burial abyss again. Data interface detected. The amount of information is large, and it is related to the soul. The chip's research on evil spirits will have a breakthrough. Automatic update begins, and all functions are suspended. Duration: 8 days, 5 hours, 3 minutes. Please wait patiently. As soon as the chip sounded, Chen Mo found some differences. First of all, he was able to move freely. He gently stroked his face and felt as if there was an extra layer of smooth film on his face. It should be the weird crying and laughing mask. It exuded a cold breath, which made Chen Mo feel less depressed when he was in the soul burial abyss, and his soul was much more active. Curiously, he gathered a water mirror and observed his face. Chen Mo found that he was wearing an exaggerated crying face. With a thought, the smiling face on the back of his head would turn to the front and replace the crying face. The conversion between the two was very fast. In addition, if you want to collect this mask, it will blend into the facial skin, revealing Chen Mo's true face, and it also has the function of skin color adjustment. After a brief try, Chen Mo turned into a handsome young man with a jade face. With his icy skin, sword-like eyebrows and star-like eyes, if he wasn't wearing a gray robe, no one would have thought that he was from the demon sect. On the contrary, if Chen Mo claimed to be a direct disciple of the Tanya sword sect, and was equipped with a 3-foot-long green sword, passers-by would definitely praise him as an outstanding newcomer of the righteous path. Clothes make the man, and horses make the saddle, and once Chen Mo has fair facial skin, he only needs to show his face to meet all the fantasies of the world about the heroes of the righteous path and young swordsman, feather fan and silk scarf, jade face and heroic appearance, elegant demeanor, swordsmanship. So handsome, I can pretend to be a seed of the sword sect. Chen Mo stroked his cheek intoxicatedly, feeling the silky softness of his skin. Most importantly, his skin was as crystal clear as snow. Even the finest white porcelain could not be as flawless and pure as it. The dark face he had before was gone forever. Chen Mo chuckled softly and said, "This time, let's see who dares to say that I have a dark face." The latest novels are first published on the 69th book bar. He was in high spirits, pointing at the dead branches, broken walls, and tiles around him, and asked, "Is it you? Or you? Or you? You said I have a dark face." Chen Mo firmly believed that he was a man of great luck. His dark face was just a jade bead covered in dust. When the time came, he would naturally be renewed and usher in a new situation. The soul burial abyss was where Chen Mo's luck turned. His face was as white as jade, and his handsome face saw the light of day again. If it were in the secular world, I'm afraid I would leave a stone tablet here, engraved with the place where the Jinai and Chen family Zimo's dragon rose, for future generations to admire and remember the difficulties of their ancestors in starting a business. When Chen Mo thought of this, he planned to leave a mark of "I was here" before the bloody evil character took him away. It would also be good for when he achieves the condensation dance stage in the future and revisits the old place to recall the past years. A gray light gathered at the fingertips, and Chen Mo stabbed the soil under his feet. With a long stroke of the pen, he was about to engrave "Chen Mo was born here, and I will keep it as a souvenir." However, half of the masterpiece was not completed, and the blood color on his HUD became stronger, rolling Chen Mo up. Before the dizziness of moving in space disappeared, Chen Mo found himself on the edge of the soul burial abyss. He wanted to step into it again, but there was an invisible force that deeply resisted him. The yin crystal in the storage bag also disappeared. I think this is what Zhang Qianshan said that day: after becoming an inner disciple, you will have a chance to choose a demon puppet with a yin crystal. You really don't forget to charge, you are so cunning. Chen Mo cursed inwardly. Before entering the soul burial abyss, in order to avoid paying the yin crystal, he deliberately hid it in the storage bag and didn't hand it over voluntarily. He thought he could get a bargain, but he still couldn't escape the fate of being charged. One yin crystal, one demon puppet selection, seems to be the iron rule here. No matter how hard you try, you can't hide it. But I still have several yin crystals, maybe. Chen Mo took out a bunch of yin crystals left after cultivating the evil spirit goo, and was about to step into the soul burial abyss again. However, just as he raised his leg, Chen Mo had a vague premonition in his heart: if he broke in forcefully, he would awaken a countless demon puppets sleeping in it, and under the control of the evil spirits inside, they would surround and kill him. Chapter 105, Master Tricked Me. According to the image in the crying and laughing mask, the soul burial abyss was created by the faceless man whose cultivation level is unknown. However, after an unknown number of years, it seems that an unknown change has occurred here. Even the crying and laughing mask, which was the initiator, can no longer affect the many evil spirits and demon puppets here. Chen Mo's plan to rely on its protection, supplemented by the yin crystal to buy a toll, and then make a fortune in the soul burial abyss has failed. Because the chip is still being updated and occupies the data interface of the crying and laughing mask, Chen Mo's consciousness cannot penetrate it, so he can't collect the information contained in it. However, the mask has merged with Chen Mo, and it is only a matter of time to reveal its secrets. He is not in a hurry and leaves the soul burial abyss with satisfaction. In order to prevent others from sensing the abnormality, Chen Mo hides the crying and laughing mask deeply in his flesh and blood, but he doesn't want to disguise his pretty face with white jade anymore. Although black face and thin fortune is a thing of the past, Chen Mo still feels uncomfortable, so he keeps the most pleasant ice and snow color and jade texture on his face, making himself the most beautiful demon cub. If he showed his true face and went out to train, he might be able to use this face to make a name for himself as the jade-faced white fox, which would be a second identity that could easily divert the attention of the righteous when killing people and seizing treasures. Of course, in the blood-clothed sect, one should still keep a low profile. Chen Mo once again wrapped his body in a shroud, wrapping his jade-white cheeks tightly to prevent his fellow disciples from coveting him. A few days later, Chen Mo led Wang Fengnian to stroll around the gushy breeding farm. Wang Yanwu, as an apprentice, followed behind him, remembering every key point carefully. Without the real-time reminder of the chip, Chen Mo was a little lacking in confidence when guiding the breeding work. He just read from the book and directly recited the breeding plan that had already been imprinted in his mind. He always evaded Wang Fengnian's questions with "I'll think about it again." "Master, that Miss Chu is here to see you again. Do you want to meet her or not?" Wang Fengnian saw that Chen Mo was in a good mood, so he boldly asked how to deal with Chu Zijin's harassment. Ever since she completed the task of reclaiming the wasteland deep in the Gurum, she has been coming to Chen Mo to ask for an explanation. After a brief exchange, Wang Fengnian discovered that this woman was by no means an ordinary woman, but had a deep connection with Chen Mo. As a servant, guessing the master's intentions was a self-cultivation that must be learned, which led to today's temptation. When Chen Mo heard the name, he knew that the bad woman who wanted to take advantage of him was here. He waved his hand and replied no, but in his heart he admired Chu Zijin's perseverance, shameless, if it is used in a negative sense. According to the explanation of the chip, this behavior is extremely green tea, and the suffix bitch can be added to satirize those who play with male emotions. Chen Mo muttered secretly, and felt that the literature, history and philosophy database that came with the chip was a gathering of humanities. He took out a word at random, savored it carefully, and chewed it repeatedly, and felt that it was profound and beneficial. Green tea, green tea. The word green is very suitable for the green in green hat. Chu Zijin, huh? Chen Mo repeated the word green tea in a low voice, and thought of Chu Zijin, a mortal princess, who was in the demon sect, but lived such a miserable life, and couldn't help but smile. Wang Fengnian didn't understand, but in order not to appear stupid, he shamelessly agreed, guessing in his heart, could this green tea be some kind of precious spiritual material that the master recently planned to plant, but the name is a bit simple. Wang Yanwu, who as the last one, came to the gu room for the first time. He was curious about everything he saw, looking around like a baby, especially the fish swimming in the pond. Yanwu, the fish head soup you drank recently is mainly made of the grass mud fish here. As a third-grade fierce beast, it is nourished by the yin spiritual energy here. The essence of its blood and flesh is a rare delicacy in the secular world. This is all the grace of the master, you must remember it. Wang Fengnian reminded his son from the side, letting him understand who his parents who provide him with food and clothing are, and who have paid a lot for his martial arts foundation. Although the chip has not been updated yet, Chen Mo's spiritual sense swept Wang Yanwu and knew that his strength had improved rapidly recently. His body was full of blood and qi, as if it was about to overflow. His tiger eyes were shining, which was a sign that he was about to break through to the 5th grade divine power warrior. Seeing Wang Fengnian's grateful look, Chen Mo concluded that he had conquered his heart. Even if he did not die for him, he was loyal to him. Looking at Wang Yanwu kindly, Chen Mo made a promise, when you become a 6th grade condensed liquid, come to the gu room to help, and the treatment will be the same as your father. Chen Mo was rich and powerful, and he didn't care about paying an extra low-level spirit stone. Wang Fengnian was overjoyed when he heard this, and he pulled his son to thank him, almost kowtowed repeatedly. The demon sect did not have the etiquette of the secular dynasty, such as 3 kneelings and 9 kowtows, which was incompatible with the free and easy sense of freedom of the practitioners. Even in the righteous immortal sect, there was no such rule. Although Chen Mo was born in a marquis's mansion and was considered a noble family, he did not want to experience this complicated secular etiquette. Apart from the word master, he did not feel much difference between superiors and subordinates. The latest novels are published on the 69th book bar. For practitioners, strength is the king after all. Chen Mo disdains the vanity brought by etiquette and such illusory feelings. Wang Fengnian is self-aware and does not care about Chen Mo's indifference to details and etiquette. On the contrary, every move reveals the respect of a warrior for a practitioner, and he teaches his son the rules. Ling. The chip upgrade is complete. The information contained in the crying and laughing mask has been absorbed and analyzed. The secret door of the Ronku cordyceps has been found and the data is being transmitted. Chen Mo's smile became even bigger. He signaled the Wang family father and son to leave, and then activated the soul summoning array to seal off the Gurum breeding farm. He studied the crying and laughing mask and the Ronku cordyceps alone. He intuitively judged that he would be exposed to the core secrets of these 2 precious items next. He made good protection in advance to prevent outsiders from breaking in and discovering his secrets. Previously, this array was optimized by the chip, and its external protection ability was greatly improved. Even the attack of a cultivator in the supernatural power period could be delayed for dozens of breaths, which was enough for Chen Mo to put away the items on hand. The amount of information was a bit large. In order to prevent himself from getting dizzy, Chen Mo first let the chip transmit the analysis of the Ronku cordyceps. Ling. This secret door should be left by Guzai, which plays the role of distributing the energy of Ronku cordyceps, and it poses no fatal threat to the host. 20% of the little bit of energy and spirit absorbed by the host by Ronku cordyceps every day will be intercepted and flowed down through this secret door, and when it is time to kill the insects and take energy, it will flow back to Guzai. If this secret door is not closed, every time the host practices meditation, he will be working for Guzai for free. A wise man would not do that. I suggest that the host transform the Ronku cordyceps. Chen Mo's face suddenly darkened. Chapter 106 Guxi's Conspiracy. My cheap master is really good at calculating. Chen Mo spat, expressing his contempt for Guzai. He indirectly stole the cultivation results of a group of disciples through Ronku cordyceps. Although the total amount of essence and spirit that Ranku cordyceps embezzled every day was not much, Guzai's gains were still considerable over time. The most important thing is that this kind of exploitation method is extremely secretive. Every direct disciple who practices the unique secret technique of Gugras will take the initiative to practice and give the essence and spirit that he has cultivated hard to this vain master for free. This is forcing me to betray my master and destroy my ancestors, huh, Guzai? Chen Mo couldn't help laughing out loud. Guzai's deliberate behavior of pitting his disciples made him understand why there are so many scums in the demon sect. The apprentice killed the old and useless master who still shamelessly occupied the throne of the vain master. The master used the high-sounding reason of cleaning up the door to deal with the apprentice who picked up the precious spiritual material and calmly collected the inheritance. Brothers who entered the sect at the same time fought overtly and covertly to compete for the title of candidate for the leader of the vain. Some of them went too far and committed accidental murder in the name of learning from their fellow disciples. The history of the demon sect is a blood book of fighting for supremacy. The blood dripping from the cover is the blood of the losers, and the winners recorded in the blood book are the names of leaders of different generations. Even if the Gugras lineage is small, today, the secret door that Guzai arranged on the Ranku cordyceps also made Chen Mo understand one thing: being in the Gugras lineage, not only do you have to compete with your brothers and sisters, but also with your master. Holding the wooden box containing the Ranku cordyceps tightly, Chen Mo's hand joints turned white due to the force, and the raging anger against Guzai in his chest was about to burst out. Chip, unlock the secret door of Ranku cordyceps, and formulate a training plan to defeat or even kill Guzai, and set the time to achieve it within half a decade. Chen Mo's face was as gloomy as water, and he ordered the chip coldly. The answer of the chip was very simple, and it also mentioned a word that Chen Mo had been thinking about: alchemist, Ling. The best way to betray the teacher and destroy the ancestors, the host becomes an alchemist, and it takes at most 2 10-year training plans to kill Guzai. The premise for achieving the goal: Guzai has not broken through to the condensation pill stage. Then, a large amount of information refined by the chip poured into Chen Mo's sea of consciousness. This is a record about the alchemist, and the source is the crying and laughing mask that Chen Mo just got. The real name of this thing is Yin-Yang mask. The crying one is Yin, and the laughing one is Yang. The main function is to help the alchemist to transform the wandering souls in the world into powerful evil spirits, so that the alchemist can perform various secret techniques, or even directly use them as spiritual materials for refining magic weapons. But what exactly is an alchemist? The Yin-Yang mask did not give an explanation, and Chen Mo could only continue to explore the answer. The chip did give a guess: alchemists are a branch of practitioners. Unlike physical practitioners who deal with the flesh and ghost practitioners who deal with the soul, alchemists deal with evil spirits. Although the yin-yang mask only has the main function of creating evil spirits, widening the face is only an auxiliary function. It is destined to be a bloody thing of extreme evil, and can be called a must-have for alchemists. The passage of time has greatly reduced the power of the yin-yang mask. It is impossible to easily transform thousands of evil spirits like when it was in the hands of the faceless man. Chen Mo can only use the Qi Yuan to warm and devour the evil spirits, so that it gradually grows to its heyday. The information contained in the yin-yang mask, except for the use of this growth talisman, is mostly messy. I think it is because of the long time that the records have gradually become vague. Regarding the various techniques of alchemists, the chip pieced together and scientifically reasoned, and restored a technique called evil spirit possession, which can be used to steal the power of evil spirits. The principle of this evil magic is similar to the secret door that Guzai left in Ranku cordyceps, but the latter is more gentle and takes longer to take effect. To describe it in scientific terms of the chip, Guzai used Ranku cordyceps as the magic entity and copied the unique secret technique of the alchemist, evil spirit possession. Ling. There is a 78% chance that when Guzai was still in the key training stage, he came into contact with a yin-yang mask in the Zanhunan. He got a glimpse and realized that evil spirits can also be controlled by practitioners. Touched by this, he grafted this application method onto the cultivation of Ranku cordyceps. In layman's terms, Guzai used Ranku cordyceps to possess his disciples and steal their spirit. The chip restored the complete magic model of evil spirit possession, which was considered to understand the entire magic principle and provide a solution to crack the secret door of Ranku cordyceps in less than a minute. Guzai carved many inscriptions on the body of Ranku cordyceps, forming several tiny formations, linked layer by layer. one ring after another, which could be said to affect the whole body. If one did not know the order of engraving these inscriptions and rashly erased one of them, it would arouse Guzai's vigilance. At that time, there would be no master-disciple friendship. With the means of Guzai's supernatural power cultivator, it would be easy to make the disciple disappear quietly. The latest novel is first published on the 69th book bar. Under the 100-fold magnification effect of the chip, no matter how small the inscriptions carved by Guzai were, Chen Mo could clearly find their existence. According to the elimination order derived from the evil spirit possession technique, he easily eliminated the secret door on Ranku cordyceps. Instead, a camouflage array that simulated the original secret door was used to convey the message everything is normal to Guzai. Through simulation, Guzai could be given the wrong message, making him think that Ranku cordyceps was still intercepting Chen Mo's spirit and energy every day. Even if Chen Mo killed Ranku cordyceps and completely absorbed the energy in its body when he broke through, this array could still block Guzai's perception, making him mistakenly believe that Ranku cordyceps was still alive, and Chen Mo did not notice the secret door. However, according to the analysis of the chip, this one-time use of Ranku cordyceps was very backward. If Ranku cordyceps was not killed when breaking through, but only a small part of its energy was extracted, and it was harvested repeatedly, it would be a good way to make steady progress and improve day by day. The chip can help Chen Mo do this, as long as he is gentler when extracting the energy of Ranku cordyceps. In this way, Guzai won't get any benefit at all. Chen Mo thought proudly, and he looked forward to defeating his cheap master and becoming the master of the Gu grass lineage. After solving the problems of Ranku cordyceps and Yin Yang mask, Chen Mo finally had time to plan to explore the underground cave world. Behind the newly discovered corridor was a vast virgin land of spiritual materials. Even if he only searched the land within a radius of more than 10 miles, he could still reap a lot. Chapter 107, Cave World. In a small corner deep in the Gu room, Chen Mo faced a pile of accumulated insect feces in front of him and asked the chip, "Are you sure this is the passage leading to a corner of the underground cave world, and there is no positioning error?" The chip's voice was as cold as always, but in order to fight back against Chen Mo's distrust, the words were a little harsh. "Host, believe it or not, since the upgrade was completed yesterday, even if it was interfered by the evil spirit's soul force field, there is no possibility of error in the positioning of this chip." At the end, it added a nonsense, "Unless the evil spirit that the host encounters has reached the supernatural power stage, the chip will not be blocked. If such an extreme situation with a probability of less than 5%, it is recommended that the host give up struggling to reduce the mental pain before death." Chen Mo had no way to deal with the chip's verbal sarcasm, because even as a host, he had no means to punish the things in his brain, so he could only endure it. Looking at the 3-meter-high pile of insect feces in front of him, Chen Mo swallowed his saliva, and with the help of Yin spiritual energy, he closed his eyes, ears, mouth and nose, with a tragic expression of birds die for money. Most of his body was stuck in this pile of smelly soil. Chen Mo felt sticky and nauseous. Any slight movement would bring up a large pile of sticky insect feces. He didn't think it was really fragrant at all. The entrance is a pile of insect feces, which is hidden. No wonder no one has discovered that this place is connected to the underground world after so many years of construction of the Gu room. When he was completely in this pile of insect feces, Chen Mo felt that his 5 senses were deprived of the smell of insects, and he also understood the hidden nature of the corridor here. With a sigh, he took out the array disc of the summoning array, tapped his fingers lightly, and the square wooden disc emitted a red light, activating the small mechanism set by the stone monkey here. The insect feces surged and combined into a lifelike little monkey, which was a miniature version of the stone monkey. Its single eye opened slightly, glanced at Chen Mo, opened its mouth and spit out the word "OK," and its figure disappeared, leaving a white space passage in its place. Across the passage is the unexplored underground cave world, which represents spiritual materials, dangers, and opportunities. Chen Mo knew that the stone monkey had already scouted the opposite side. As long as he didn't go too deep, the danger level would be limited to the key training stage, so he walked in boldly. Even if I encounter a monster at the 12th level of key training, I have all the means, and I have a chip to plan the escape route. If I can't beat it, I can still escape. Chen Mo was full of confidence. Today, it's my first time to come to the underground cave world. I feel deeply. The air is filled with a sweet smell of Yin spiritual energy. As a yin spiritual vein practitioner, Chen Mo clearly felt the friendly signals released by the surrounding environment to him. It seems that he can perform various low-level yin attribute spells with a thought. Ling. The free yin spiritual energy factor in the underground cave world is abnormally active. It is recommended that the host live here for a long time. Not only can the skin become wider, but it can also advance to the 12th level of ki training faster. Chen Mo opened the dynamic 3D vision and began to explore this unknown area carefully. Wrapped in a shroud, Chen Mo's breath was very close to the outside world. When he was moving, he was like a ghost, leaving no trace. Compared with the Gurum, the underground cave world was much more vast. Although there were thick stone pillars supporting the rock wall above his head that blocked his vision, in general, it was an open underground plain, flat as a river. The fluorescent mosses on the ground were much more colorful than those in the Gurum. Even the same green had dozens of different shades: grass green, green hat color, green tea color, emerald green. Chen Mo's journey was very informative, and he was very impressed by the chip's ability to name colors. Ling. A high-intensity spiritual force field was found, located in the bushes 10 meters ahead of the host. In Chen Mo's sight, there were a bunch of energy fields with different colors, indicating that there was a gathering place for small spiritual materials ahead. It was less than 100 meters away from the connection port, and there was such a harvest, which was a good start. Sure enough, undeveloped virgin land is just a place to pick up money. Chen Mo's eyes were full of the shining image of spiritual stones, and he was overjoyed, but he did not lose his vigilance. Wherever spiritual materials grow, there are many monsters. For safety reasons, Chen Mo took out the telescope seized from the running dog of Ting Fangjian and observed it carefully from a distance of hundreds of steps. This item is produced by the General Works Department and can be used by mortals, so there is no spiritual fluctuation, which greatly improves the concealment when detecting the enemy. Previously, Chen Mo made a sample and submitted it to the sect, and also reported the information that the Kayanigan Empire was developing war equipment in exchange for a meager contribution point. However, this epoch-making weapon did not cause any waves in the sect. There was no follow-up at all. Intuition told Chen Mo that the working disciple of the Blood Clothes building who handed over the telescope sample to him did not attach importance to this discovery, and did not even report it to the supernatural power monk in charge, that is, Wei Deacon. Now, that sample is probably gathering dust in a corner of the warehouse. Chen Mo's heart was full of contempt for this short-sighted person, thinking, when we get to the battlefield, the inner and outer disciples, even the supernatural power cultivators, will be exposed because of the telescope and surrounded by the army of warriors. Then the sect will know how powerful the general is. The latest novel is first published on the 69th book bar. Practitioners, facing mortals and warriors who cannot practice ki, all have an arrogant attitude, and they are even more disdainful of craftsmen who can't even stand up in the secular world. It is normal that the telescope sample did not attract the attention of the sect's top leaders. But Chen Mo did not intend to speak out, especially to Guzai. Forcing a group of supernatural power cultivators who are arrogant to pay attention to the invention of mortal ants will only make themselves bored. If Guxi is discovered by the telescope and surrounded by the army, it would be the best. A dark thought rose in Chen Mo's mind. However, he had the chip to teach him, so he would not turn a blind eye to the threat of the telescope. Chen Mo knew that a gentleman is not born different, but is good at using things, so under the guidance of the chip, he made a subtle modification to the genuine telescope. The mirror surface was changed to a mid-level spiritual stone with exhausted spiritual energy, and the maximum viewing distance and clarity of the telescope were greatly improved through the polishing method with the highest refractive index. Simply retracting the lens tube, Chen Mo could see every plant and tree in the resource point ahead. On the ground, the vines and thorns unique to the cave world were growing wildly. The color was dark and covered with barbs. It was obvious at a glance that they were not easy to digest grass plants. If they were cut and fed to herbivores on the surface, they would die of stomach sac rupture and esophagus blockage within a day. The branches and leaves of the vegetation are extremely slender, and the amount of water they store is limited. From a distance, they appear malnourished and shriveled. Chen Mo glanced at these ordinary crops without any spiritual energy, and then stopped looking at them, focusing his attention on several nodes where the spiritual energy field fluctuated abnormally. 7 or 8 scarlet wild fruits, hidden among the vines and thorns, are like drops of blood, adding a touch of bloody temptation to the black vegetation. In the cave world where water resources are scarce, Pure water and groundwater are scarce resources that only high-level monsters can enjoy, while blood is the cheapest and most popular daily consumable. The duet of hunting and being hunted has always been the main theme in the cave world. In the eyes of cave creatures, all objects with a bright red color are extremely tempting survival necessities. Ling. Found a blood-eye fruit. Taking 5 can increase 1.0 essence. Chapter 108 More cunning than a snake. Chen Mo's eyelids twitched, and he was slightly moved. With the increase of essence to a high value of 7.8, it is not easy to go further. If you use magic to stimulate the body, the effect will be quick, but there is a hidden danger of exhausting potential. It is more likely that you will use too much force and the body will collapse directly in the middle of casting. If you rely on slow work to gradually increase the essence, it will be the way of Yinsha Shroud Corpse, which will take a long time to take effect. Even if Chen Mo has the guidance of the chip, the evil spirit required for daily body refining is also in sufficient supply. Without 7 or 8 years of patience, it is impossible to break through the 10.0 mark. The blood-eye fruit in front of him can directly increase the essence after taking it, without any side effects, which is very suitable for those who have achieved success in body refining like Chen Mo. It's a pity that the blood-eye fruit can't enhance Qiyuan. Chen Mo was greedy and unsatisfied, but the chip refuted this possibility. Ling. In the West Coast, spiritual materials that can enhance both Jinyuan and Qiyuan are extremely rare. Every time they appear, countless physical cultivators and ordinary key practitioners will join the bloody competition. With the host's strength, rashly participating in it will only increase the number of dead souls. The good stuff was right in front of him, and Chen Mo didn't care about the ridicule of the chip. He strode forward, pretending to be salivating over the blood-eye fruit and losing his mind. Ling. Real-time monitoring is turned on. There is a black line scaled snake under the blood-eye fruit in the bushes. Jinyuan. 1.2, Qiyuan. 2.1, Shenyuan. 3.1. The scales on the snake head are highly toxic. If the host ingests 1 milligram of this poison, he's expected to die within 15 minutes. Please be careful of the venomous snake's initiative to touch the porcelain. In Chen Mo's vision, the crimson warning symbol clearly marked the location of the black line scaled snake. No matter how you disguise yourself, you will be exposed by the combination of the telescope and the chip thermal imaging image. The black line scaled snake cunningly disguised itself as a soft black thorn, curling lazily just below a few blood-eye fruits. In order to make the posture more concealed, the black line scaled snake even buried half of its body in the soil. A black thorn branch struggling to break out of the soil represents the plant's desire for fresh air and the colorful fluorescence of the cave world, which was vividly interpreted by the black line scaled snake. It's so cunning, it's really abominable. Chen Mo cursed in his heart, the monsters that can make a living in the cave world are really good. The black line scaled snake is only a second-grade monster, but it is born with divine consciousness and is extremely poisonous. The combination of the two greatly improves its survival ability. The divine sense warned the black line scaled snake disguised as a black thorn, and it never provoked the powerful monsters passing by. The poison attached to the scales on its forehead was fatal to monsters below the 6th rank. Even if the cave blood wolf was full of blood and strong, it would die of heart and lung failure within half an hour after being hit on the forehead by the black line scaled snake. If the combat power is not good, the venom will make up for it. This is the way of survival for the black line scaled snake. The black line scaled snake in front of Chen Mo is more cunning than its peers. It knows how to take advantage of the greed of the cave creatures for the blood-eye fruit, wait for the opportunity, and ambush the silly prey that comes to its door. Then let's see who is more cunning. Chen Mo quietly put his left hand behind his back, manipulated the shroud to condense a ring, and could lock the target tightly with just a thought. Ling. Black line scaled snake. The snake head is slightly raised at a 15-degree angle, the body is tense, and it has the idea of hitting the host. The ejection trajectory has been calculated, please pay attention to dodge. Blue light appeared in Chen Mo's eyes. It was the movement trajectory of the black line scaled snake outlined by the chip. He already knew it. In order not to alert the snake, Chen Mo did not slow down the speed of approaching the bushes, and still disguised himself as a two-legged sheep whose eyes were shining when he saw the blood-eye fruit. With a slight glance from the corner of his eyes, Chen Mo found that the black line scaled snake was so excited that the scales on its body were slightly twitching. A beast is a beast. Playing tricks is still not as good as the chip. With confidence, Chen Mo stepped into the attack range of the black line scaled snake. Before it ejected, he had placed his right hand across his chest, and the ring formed by the shroud opened, waiting for the prey to fall into the trap. This was the prediction of the chip. When the black-lined scaled snake just retracted its tail and broke out of the ground, Chen Mo was ready. In this way, it was as if the black-lined scaled snake took the initiative to drill into the ring. The speed of the confrontation was too fast. When the black-lined scaled snake's consciousness reminded it that there was a trap in front of it, it was already in midair. It was too late to change direction hastily. It could only watch itself drill into the ring. With a thud, Chen Mo injected a large amount of qi into the shroud, so that outside the ring formed by the shroud, there was another large ring formed by pure yin spiritual energy. The two tightened at the same time, locking the black-lined scaled snake 7 inches firmly. The latest novels are first published on the 69th book bar. With its vitals controlled by someone, the black-lined scaled snake struggled desperately, but its cultivation was only at the 2nd level of qi training, its body was weak, and it had almost no ability to cast spells. All the poison in its body was concentrated on a scale on its forehead, so that it struggled for most of the day, but could not move an inch. Soon, the black-lined scaled snake was left with only the strength to hiss helplessly. Chen Mo manipulated the shroud to cover the poisonous scales on the black-lined scaled snake's forehead, and then lifted it to his side, letting it open its snake eyes and take a good look at how he enjoyed the blood-eye fruit. The black-lined scaled snake has outstanding venom, but its physique is extremely poor. The blood-eye fruit is an extremely rare spiritual material for it. Since discovering this place, the black-lined scaled snake has settled in the bushes. But it is very greedy and wants the blood-eye fruit to grow for another 10 years to reach 100 years old. By then, its medicinal power can be greatly increased. Therefore, the black-lined scaled snake has been forcing itself not to swallow the blood-eye fruit, and only uses them to lure the creatures in the cave. Hiss, hiss, hiss. The black-lined scaled snake watched Chen Mo pick the blood-eye fruit, and the hissing sound became more urgent. Its pair of snake eyes revealed anthropomorphic anxiety. I know you have intelligence, so enjoy my feast of blood-eye fruit before you die. Chen Mo threw a bright red blood-eye fruit into his mouth, bit it gently with his teeth, and the mellow fruit pulp splashed, and there was a fragrance. The black-lined scaled snake only smelled a hint of the lingering fragrance, and fell into restlessness and could not control itself. However, trapped by the shroud and the yin spiritual energy ring, the black-lined scaled snake could only swallow saliva on the side, and did not even have the opportunity to drink a mouthful of soup. The blood-eye fruit can grow so well, and you have contributed to it. If you hadn't often used the blood of your prey to irrigate it, the fruit pulp would not have such a mellow fragrance. Chen Mo smacked his lips and praised, and he also licked the blood-eye fruit juice at the corner of his mouth with his tongue, leaving no drop. The black-scaled snake had a hateful look in its eyes, but it was powerless to do anything. Chen Mo was more cunning than the snake, so it could only admit defeat and let him do whatever he wanted. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 109, The Magical Uses of Snake Venom. After turning the bushes upside down, Chen Mo found a total of 6 blood-eye fruits. He ate them with satisfaction and patted his stomach. He felt a strong heat rising in his lower abdomen, which was slowly improving his physical fitness. Kill the snake and destroy its heart. Not only will I take your gallbladder to drink, but I will also let you taste the pain of being a bride for others. Chen Mo stared at the black-lined scaled snake and snorted coldly. If it weren't for the reminder of the chip, Chen Mo would have been fooled by the disguise of the black-lined scaled snake with only a telescope from a distance. When he thought of being hit by it, being poisoned, and dying from skin ulcers all over his body, Chen Mo felt terrified and hated the black-lined scaled snake even more. Too lazy to tease this rat that had lost its ability to resist, Chen Mo tightened the shroud and twisted it hard, suffocating the black-lined scaled snake to death. The gallbladder of the black-lined scaled snake is also highly toxic, no less toxic than the poisonous scales on its forehead. It cannot be eaten. The host should not speculate on the characteristics of the monster based on the common sense that the gallbladder of venomous snakes can make wine. Chen Mo was mocked by the chip for no reason, and could only admit that he had little education and was uneducated. The difference between the creatures in the cave and the creatures on the surface is indeed huge. Chip, retrieve the information about the cave world and gradually transmit it to the memory area. In an unfamiliar environment, Chen Mo could not spare the energy to read relevant information, and could only rely on the explanation of the chip to survive, so he resolutely chose to swallow his anger under its mockery. The gallbladder is poisonous, and the remaining body parts of the black-lined scaled snake are not worth much, so Chen Mo was too lazy to dissect it and threw it into a messy bush with disgust. Before long, the scavengers in the cave will greedily gnaw the body of the black-lined scaled snake. The host's essence has increased, but because the basic essence value is too high, the medicinal power of the 6 blood-eye fruits has only increased the essence by 1.2. Host Chen Mo, Essence 9, Key 3.2, Spirit 4.1, Status, Good. Chen Mo was not very satisfied with the current 3-dimensional data. I have been cultivating immortals for more than a year, why do I feel like I am biased in one subject? Chen Mo's main practice, the 9-yin forging pulse technique, is intended to practice Qi. The Qi value should be the highest, relying on the power of one's own Qi Si to pry the spiritual energy of heaven and earth and perform various magic. This kind of Qi training is actually the mainstream practice method among practitioners. Ghost practitioners, body practitioners, and alchemists are only the choices of a few people. The yin sha corpse wrapping method attached to the 9-yin forging pulse technique is just to ensure the cultivation of the yin spirit body, and is specially prepared for practitioners with weak constitutions. As a result, Chen Mo was gifted in the way of body training, and he also had a good capital left over from the foundation of martial arts. Once he started to practice, he made rapid progress. Now he has the blood-eye fruit medicine to supplement. In the 3-dimensional data, his essence value is far ahead, but his cultivation is still at the 3rd level of Qi training. His skin was taut, and his Qi sank into Danshan. Chen Mo had a vague illusion that his body could cross the void. This was a change that occurred after his essence entered the 9.0 mark, and it was a prelude to the body's derived talents and abilities. If you peel off the shroud wrapped around his body, you can vaguely see that Chen Mo's surface skin is glowing and radiating a jade-like luster, as if he had put on a protective film as thin as a cicada's wing. This is the skin that is resistant to low-level magic. Only when the body is refined to about 10.0 can it have some power. Of course, Chen Mo's current magic resistance can only be immune to small fireballs, water arrows, and ice spikes, which are not so much magic as tricks of the Jianghu. It is still far from the physical cultivation of the supernatural power stage taking a bath in the magic waterfall. The 10.0 level is the dividing line between the physical cultivation of the Qi training stage and the physical cultivation of the supernatural power stage. Therefore, it is very difficult to increase the essence from 9.0 to 10.0. Every 0.1 forward represents a big step forward for the host on the road to physical training. Please be mentally prepared for hard work. Chen Mo's heart sank, and he had a premonition of the difficulty of using the Yinsha corpse wrapping method to improve the physical body. The slight vibration of the ground was detected, which is suspected to be the frequency of 4-hoof animals approaching. It is recommended that the host hide in time and set traps to lure prey. It is recommended to use local materials to kill the approaching with the poisonous scales and gallbladder of the black-lined snake. The dark suggestion of the chip made Chen Mo eager to try. Not only did he kill the snake to take the spiritual material, he also did not spare the corpse of the black-lined scaled snake. The greed and viciousness of this behavior had reached a peak. The law of the jungle is that the fittest survive. If I were touched by your poisonous scales, I would also become your meal. You can't blame me for what happened today. Chen Mo condensed his Qi Yuan, put on a pair of yin spiritual energy gloves on his hands, carefully took out the gallbladder of the black-lined scaled snake, and took off the poisonous scales on its forehead and stuffed them in, adding poison to poison, which can be called highly toxic. Then he squeezed hard, and drops of venom flowed out and were wrapped by Chen Mo with yin spiritual energy. The snake venom is extremely corrosive. When it comes into contact with yin spiritual energy, it makes a sizzling sound, rapidly consuming Chen Mo's Qi Yuan. Fortunately, the trap was not set for a long time, otherwise Chen Mo would not be able to withstand the consumption of Qi Yuan. After a lot of hard work, Chen Mo coated the roots and stems of several blood-eye fruits in the bushes with strong snake venom to poison the cave creatures that came to eat the remaining spiritual materials. Once the blood-eye fruit is picked, its rhizome will not grow new fruit. Chen Mo did not feel bad when he used it to set traps. However, Chen Mo kept the remaining blood-eye fruit seeds after eating the flesh, and planned to cultivate them on a large scale in the future. Rolling Yan Qingyi, breath-concealing technique, dust technique. In order to ensure concealment, Chen Mo walked 100 steps away from the bushes and performed a series of spells, layered on top of each other, hiding himself in a pile of rocks surrounded by gray mist. The underground world is full of such piles of rocks with gloomy and sinister auras. Chen Mo's disguise is not conspicuous at all. The latest novels are first published on the 69th book bar. The order, direction, and strength of the spells designed by the chip are also very reasonable. There is no conflict between the yin spirit and the earth spirit, which causes abnormal fluctuations in the spirit and exposes Chen Mo's position. Lying on the ground, Chen Mo carefully observed the movements of the bushes through a telescope. Compared to when the black-lined scaled snake settled here, this tiny resource point seemed even more messy. Black thorns and dead vines were uprooted and randomly piled up, and the ground was full of potholes. But the remaining mellow fragrance of the blood-eye fruit spread in the mess, and the blood and flesh of the black-lined scaled snake added a touch of blood to the sweet fragrance, which was a great temptation for the cave creatures that were eager for blood food and coveted spiritual materials. A rustling sound rang out, and a lone wolf the size of a calf appeared. It was blood red all over, and it was the common monster in the cave world, the blood wolf. Due to the large population, the cultivation of individual blood wolves was uneven. The one in front of him was a 6th-grade monster with bright fur and sharp eyes, but there were no bite marks on his body, indicating that he had just reached adulthood, but his vitality was as vigorous as the morning sun, and he was considered a dangerous creature in the shallow cave world. As an adult male, this blood wolf had just been driven out of the wolf pack by the Wolf King and had not lived alone for long. He was full of curiosity about everything in the outside world. He smelled the fragrance of plant juice from a few miles away and followed the scent all the way here. The young blood wolf was still very cautious. He tiptoed and wandered in front of the bushes for a while. He took a step forward 1 meter and immediately retreated 2 meters as if frightened. He tried this 3 times before convincing himself that there were no predators hidden in the bushes. He slowly moved towards the rhizome of the blood-eye fruit. Chen Mo looked down on these leftovers, so he used them to make bait, but for the hungry young blood wolf, they were high-energy food that could fill his stomach. After sniffing carefully, the blood wolf could not resist the temptation of food and swallowed a long string of blood-eye fruit rhizomes in one gulp. As for the remains of the black-lined scale snake next to it, it did not dare to touch it. Obviously, it also knew that the snake was highly poisonous. Haha, the poison of the black-scaled snake is colorless and tasteless. You are still young and inexperienced, so you must have fallen into the trap. Chen Mo was lying in the distance, watching the blood wolf proudly after it devoured the rhizome of the blood-eye fruit. Its limbs became weak, its skin turned purple, and it fell to the ground. Chapter 110 Soul Reading and Treasure Hunting. The soul of this blood wolf is quite tough, reaching the minimum value of divine essence to withstand the destruction of soul reading. It is recommended that the host extract its memory fragments to understand the deeper world of the cave. Chen Mo thought this plan was feasible. Without waiting for the blood wolf to die, he strode forward and aimed its ferocious head at his own head. With forehead touching forehead, Chen Mo released his divine sense and drilled into the skull of the blood wolf with difficulty. Because it was already in the dying moment, the defense line of its soul became fragile. Chen Mo's divine sense invaded it with a slight rush. Death was imminent, but the proud blood wolf was unwilling to let a 2-legged sheep defile its soul. It struggled to raise its front limbs and stabbed its fragile neck, intending to commit suicide. The shroud was wrapped around it, and the sharp wolf claws were tied together tightly, shattering the blood wolf's fantasy. Woo woo woo, the blood wolf whimpered unwillingly, and could only watch Chen Mo blaspheme its noble soul. Soon, his head sank, and the blood wolf felt a domineering will, drilling into a sea of consciousness. It was aggressive like fire and greedy like gluttony. After a while, it occupied most of the sea of consciousness. It's nothing more than a cuckoo occupying a magpie's nest. This was also the first time that Chen Mo used his spiritual consciousness to invade someone else's sea of consciousness. He felt quite novel, poking around here and there, just like a robber, relying on his hidden capital, forcibly breaking into other people's homes and picking and choosing. The memory of the blood wolf was the target of the robber Chen. When the foreheads of the man and the wolf touched, the yin and yang facial makeup appeared on Chen Mo's face. This evil talisman, this time, presented a black crying face. It emitted a dark light, and along with Chen Mo's spiritual consciousness, it penetrated into the blood wolf's sea of consciousness. Wrapped in this layer of black light, Chen Mo's spiritual consciousness condensed and did not disperse, and even formed a howling face, with facial features similar to Chen Mo, but much more blurred. Crying Face roared and galloped in the chaotic sea of consciousness of the blood wolf. The arrogant outsider quickly forced out the blood wolf's soul. A scarlet ball of light jumped out from a corner, transformed into agile limbs, and the halo around it stretched and retracted, just like a cave predator that arched its back and stretched its claws when facing its prey. However, the weakness of the flesh was faithfully reflected in the blood wolf's soul. The blood-colored ball of light only collided with Chen Mo's consciousness for a moment, and then it all collapsed, turning into a red mist that covered the sea of consciousness, and could no longer condense and hit Chen Mo's consciousness head-on. With a blessing of the yin-yang mask, Chen Mo's consciousness was in the sea of consciousness of the blood wolf, but there was no strong sense of sluggishness when it moved, like a ferocious little wolf dog, constantly attacking. Crying Face opened his bloody mouth and suddenly tore it, biting off a large ball of the blood wolf's soul. The remaining red mist seemed to sense something and took the initiative to retreat. However, the blood wolf's sea of consciousness was only this big, and the red mist had nowhere to escape. The chaotic and disordered flow of memories impacted Chen Mo's consciousness, and was accompanied by the blood wolf's strong negative emotions: anger, unwillingness, resentment, curse, fear. Ling found the data interface, received and analyzed, removed redundant and mazy memories, and reorganized the data. The memory flow brought great pressure to Chen Mo's consciousness, but with the help of the chip, the pressure on the soul was quickly reduced, and finally stabilized to a level that Chen Mo could accept. Therefore, he only needed to concentrate on dealing with the negative emotions in his brain and maintain the clarity of his consciousness. There was no need to rush to read and absorb the blood wolf's memory fragments. The chip would organize and store them, so Chen Mo's consciousness, after getting used to the impact of the memory flow and negative emotions, continued to attack the blood wolf's sea of consciousness. Groups of red mist were constantly eaten by Chen Mo, and the blood wolf's soul became weaker and weaker. In the end, without Chen Mo launching a spiritual attack, the blood wolf's soul disintegrated and disappeared, leaving only an empty sea of consciousness, so that Chen Mo only collected 63% of the blood wolf's memory. The effect of the soul reading spell depends not only on the caster's spiritual energy value, whether it is enough to break through the sea of consciousness of the caster, but also on the strength of the caster's soul. Only those who are extremely condensed can hold on until the moment when the soul reading spell ends. The strength of the blood wolf's soul can only be said to be average, with a spiritual energy value of only 3.6. It is normal that it can't bear the pain of the soul being torn apart and disappears on its own. Chen Mo didn't regret much, sighed, and put down the blood wolf's head. Without the soul, the blood wolf's body is still breathing, but its eyes are closed. It has become a plant wolf. It will die in 5 or 6 days because of not eating and drinking. Ling. The search of blood wolf's memory is complete. 3 suspected resource points are found. There may be a certain amount of spiritual stones, spiritual materials and monster nests. The surrounding map and the route to the destination are outlined. Please proceed with caution. Chen Mo did not need to read and analyze blood wolf's memory by himself. All of this was done by the chip. He rubbed his eyebrows to relieve the fatigue of his soul. Chen Mo rubbed the 2 acupuncture points on the back of his head according to a special massage method. He felt much more awake, and the sequelae of the soul reading technique almost disappeared. The latest novels are first published on the 69th book bar. Just go to the nearest one. The chip provides the safest route. Chen Mo has a 3-month priority development period for this corridor leading to the underground cave world. Therefore, during this period of time, this is his hunting ground alone, so he is not in a hurry to go deeper. He plans to search the land near the connection port first. Calculating the time, there are less than 2 months left, which is enough for me to make a small fortune. Chen Mo did not dream of discovering a giant spiritual stone vein and becoming rich overnight, so he walked carefully in the cave world with a normal heart. The fangs, claws, and fur of the blood wolf are all good materials for refining weapons. He had already processed them and stored them in the storage bag. It is recommended that the host apply fluorescent moss juice to the skin of the palm to remove the strong bloody smell and blood wolf body odor on it, so as not to attract the blood wolf pack to kill. Note that if the number of wolves is around 20, the host can escape with minor injuries. If the number exceeds 40, The host must perform the blood-burning technique and pay the price of serious injuries to break through the encirclement. If the number reaches 50, the host's chance of survival is less than 10%. Chen Mo was shocked. Among the Blood Wolf tribe, even the most powerful Wolf King is only a 12th grade monster at the 12th level of the key training period, but they are proficient in cooperation. Once the number forms a scale, it will be a nightmare for lone monsters of the same realm. Chen Mo thought he had good fighting power and varied means, but when he thought of the blood wolves surrounding him, he lost confidence and quickly collected various underground plants, ground them into powder, and applied them all over his body. Host, don't be too nervous. Just apply some key parts that have too much contact with the blood wolves. There is no need to apply fluorescent moss juice on private parts. Please stop this indecent and ineffective behavior. Chen Mo was too afraid of death and wanted to cover every part of his skin with cave vegetation that concealed human smell. Halfway through, this absurd behavior was stopped by the chip. The shroud, because it was coated with various colorful plant juices, has become a camouflage uniform. Fortunately, the cave world is colorful. Chen Mo crouched forward, and with the cover of the shroud, it seemed very natural. Even the chip gave a 97.7% simulation rate. It is impossible for ordinary monsters to find clues at a glance. Chapter 111, Lizardmen. The closer to the destination marked by the chip, the denser the bushes on both sides of the road, and bitter locust trees several people tall appeared. The trunk was thin and withered, less than one person could hug it, the skin was gray and black, the leaves were sparse, and they were shaped like silver needles, and the branches stretched out like ghost hands to passers-by. The bitter locust trees were next to each other, with twisted shapes, conveying a kind of silent pain that made people shudder. Walking through it, Chen Mo felt like he was in a gloomy ghastland. The concentration of yin spiritual energy increased, and the activity of free spiritual energy factors increased, which is suitable for the survival of evil spirits. According to the memory of the blood wolf, this place is a gathering place for lizard people. The number of people is unknown, and the host is not recommended to attack head-on. The underground cave world is a paradise for evil spirits and cold-blooded monsters due to the abundant negative energy. In addition, there are signs of alien activities in many areas. Those who are not of my race must have different hearts, and they are all aliens. The practitioners call all non-purebred humanoid species aliens and refuse to accept them as part of the human race. This is to ensure the purity of the practitioners and prevent the outflow of precious skills. However, intelligent aliens can create their own skills and practice key according to the physiological structure of the race. The ground lizards who are about to confront Chen Mo are the weakest among the aliens. They are ignorant by nature and have dull talents. Most of them are born with mixed spiritual veins. That is, they live in a rich spiritual environment like the underground cave. Over time, they have some key yuan and comprehend a few crude low-level skills. Except for the tribal leader and his personal guards, ordinary ground lizards are not good at practice, rely only on instinct, and have low intelligence. They are easy to deal with. This is why Chen Mo dares to face a group alone. Just like the grassland tribes in the secular world live by water and grass, the ground lizards will also live in places full of spiritual energy driven by instinct. Sephora japonica, as the word Sephora japonica means, is a ghost among trees, good at gathering yin. Once the number reaches a certain scale, the negative energy such as free corpse ki, dead ki, blood ki, etc. in the underground cave world will be attracted by the Sephora japonica forest and settle here. It is normal for the ground lizard people to choose this gloomy Sephora japonica forest to settle down. The negative energy here is concentrated and highly radiated, which is very harmful to the flesh of creatures with mixed spiritual veins. The strength of the ground lizard people is limited. They cannot avoid the erosion of yin spiritual ki, and their bodies may be malignantly deformed. Please be careful. The flesh carries poison, corpse explosion attacks, mutation ability. Be careful, don't capsize in the gutter. Chen Mo is alert. Through the memory fragments of the blood wolf, he has learned that the strength of ordinary ground lizard people is not strong, but they are only at the first or second level of key training, no more than half 100, and Chen Mo has no pressure to deal with them. The ground lizard people with weak individual strength have earned a place in the underground cave world by relying on the population advantage. If a ground lizard and a blood wolf meet on a narrow road, the former is nothing more than the latter's food, but its meat is sour and bitter. Unless the blood wolf is starving, it will come to the locust tree forest to eat a patrolling ground lizard to satisfy its hunger. Snap! There was a crisp sound of branches breaking not far away. Chen Mo immediately lay down in a bush, holding his breath, revealing a pair of bright eyes, observing the enemy. Two ground lizards walked out from the depths of the locust tree forest with their shoulders linked, like two jungle monitors walking upright, with light green scales all over their bodies and a greasy, slender tail. Their physique can only be described as lean, about the same height as an ordinary person, with a flat head and a scarlet forked tongue from time to time. Chen Mo judged from this honor that the average intelligence of the ground lizards was extremely low. Humans, as the spirit of all things, are extremely intelligent, and this is not something the human race brags about. This is recognized by countless demons and aliens, because these non-human creatures, when they reach a certain level of cultivation, will eventually undergo catastrophes and transform. The higher the cultivation, the closer the transformed form is to humans. This ironclad fact has forced most non-human races to admit that the human form may not be the most powerful in combat, but it is the most suitable for practicing Qi, no one else. No matter what form the body is in, if you want to become a son of heaven and earth in practice, you must transform into human form. Ling. Earth Lizard Scout, Qi Training Level 1, Essence. 6.5, Qi Essence. 1.1, Shen Yuan. 0.1, Roadside Ants, extremely low danger, but it is not recommended that the host rashly kill it and alert the enemy. Although the chip's advice was very pertinent, Chen Mo still went against it, stood up directly, and used the backing tortoise shell to cover the two earth lizards together. The wisdom of the earth lizards is very low, but the instinct to fight for life and death is not bad. In the cage of earth spirit energy, one of them raised its head and screamed, calling for its kind nearby, while the other one crouched down, like a giant lizard with 4 legs, and used its thickest scales to hit the light curtain formed by the tortoise shell on the mountain. The sound of boom spread in the quiet locust tree forest. The chip warned, Ling. More than 10 life forms have been detected, approaching the host at a speed of 60 kilometers per hour. Please prepare for battle in advance. Quick battle and quick decision. The latest novels are first published on the 69th book bar. Chen Mo spitted out a misty gray light from his fingertips, and with the power of his soul, shot it at the ground lizard man who kept hitting the light curtain, easily taking away its consciousness. The lean body of the ground lizard man scout fell to the ground with a bang, which shocked his companions around him, and they screamed even more miserably for reinforcements. Noisy. Chen Mo pointed at the turtle shell floating in front of his chest, and the earth yellow light curtain covering the earth lizard man collapsed immediately. With the huge mass and impact force of the condensed earth spirit energy, the earth lizard man who was shouting for help was suffocated to death. The earth lizard man's reinforcements chirped and shouted in his ears. Chen Mo did not stay for long. He picked up the unconscious earth lizard man's scout and put him on his right shoulder, and strode out of the bitter locust forest. After the essence reached 9.0, the physique was terrifying. Even the bitter locust tree with dense roots and deep roots in the ground was directly knocked away by Chen Mo, who turned into a bulldozer, and plowed out a messy forest path. Broken branches and leaves fell all over the ground. Ling. There is no trace of strong life force field activity within a kilometer behind the host. It is recommended that the host stop. Bang! The earth lizard man captive was thrown to the ground by Chen Mo, groaning and opening a pair of green eyes, looking at Chen Mo, who was wrapped in colorful strips of cloth, with a look of horror. At that, and the lizardmen also have their own language, but Chen Mo can't understand it, but the chip is quickly deciphering it. As the lizardmen speak more and more, according to the universal language rules and scientific speculation, the chip quickly transmits the deciphered lizardman language to Chen Mo. How many heads do you have in your tribe? Who is the strongest? Stumbling, Chen Mo squeezed out a relatively complete question from his throat. Chapter 112, Heart of the Sephora Tree. Chen Mo had already completed the foundation of martial arts and could easily control the muscles and vocal cords of his body, otherwise he would not be able to speak the low-frequency and rhythmic language of the earth lizards. After saying this, Chen Mo's forehead was sweating, and he was more tired than a battle. After all, the vocal organs of humans are too different from those of earth lizards. It takes too much energy to simulate them. The brain circuit of the earth lizard captive was simple, and he did not think of lying about military intelligence to set a trap for Chen Mo. He told Chen Mo all the information about the tribe. However, his frankness did not win Chen Mo's mercy. After the chip repeatedly tested the lie detector and confirmed the authenticity of the information, his throat was crushed and he died. The soul of the earth lizard was too fragile, and even the soul reading technique could not withstand it. Chen Mo could only use the clumsy method of asking and answering questions to obtain information. Fortunately, the lizardmen have low IQs, otherwise, if they ask questions repeatedly for a long time, my vocal organs will not be able to bear it. Chen Mo's throat was already burning with pain after asking less than 20 questions. It can be seen that for humans, the language of lizardmen is extremely obscure and difficult to imitate. It's a pity that the chip can't control part of my nerve tissue, otherwise. Chen Mo could only think about the unrealistic idea of letting the smart chip take over the body. Even if the chip is upgraded one day and has this function, he dare not use it with confidence. What if it is replaced by the chip? What should Chen Mo do? So you'd better be a data processor honestly. This is a good chip. After understanding the intelligence of the lizardman tribe, Chen Mo immediately took action and gradually went deeper into the locust tree forest. Along the way, he clearly felt that the frequency of patrols by the lizardmen increased. It seemed that the previous attack on the two scouts made the entire tribe a little nervous and vigilant. If the host continues to walk forward for 22 meters, he will collide with 3 earth lizards. It is recommended that the host crawl forward to avoid the enemy scouts. This time, Chen Mo followed the chip's advice meticulously and quickly fell to the ground. The 3 earth lizards came closer, and Chen Mo could even feel their warm body temperature and the fishy body odor of the beasts. Hiss, was the blood wolf responsible for what happened just now? Maybe, it only picked the fat one to eat. The one who was beaten into meat pie, his death was really miserable. The 3 earth lizards talked as if no one was around, but they didn't know that the instigator was eavesdropping at their feet, and the corners of his mouth even curved into a mocking smile. Analyzing the performance of the 3, it is concluded that the disturbance caused by the host is not a big deal. The lizard tribe in the area is not on high alert. The host can slightly reduce the degree of camouflage and does not need to hold his breath all the time. Chen Mo took a breath boldly. After the 3 scouts left, the smell of soil and weeds, as well as the minty fragrance unique to the locust tree, reappeared in his mouth and nose. With his 9.0 physical fitness, he can easily breathe through the pores all over his body. The hemoglobin in his body can also store a large amount of oxygen. Holding his breath for half an hour is nothing, but being able to exhale and inhale freely through his mouth and nose still makes Chen Mo feel physically and mentally comfortable. This is the instinct of living things, just like the cultivators in the supernatural power period can theoretically eat ki and fast, and the gods will not die, but still eat some refined rice and spiritual plants to satisfy their appetite. Continuing to go deeper, Chen Mo finally came to the core area of this locust forest. Looking up, he saw a short locust tree king with a trunk as thick as 10 men hugging with their hands. On its trunk, there is also a human face the size of a millstone, but the facial features are relatively blurred. After comparing the chip, this face is 78% similar to the evil spirit Jiang Wen who attacked him and Zhou Fangyun. A 300-year-old locust tree was found. A locust tree heart has condensed inside, which can accommodate the soul and spirit, and is suitable for making a life box for ghost cultivators or evil spirits. Inference: after Jiang Wen committed suicide, his soul did not die, and settled in the heart of this locust tree, and transformed into an evil spirit in the negative energy environment of the locust tree forest. Seeing this spiritual material that countless soul practitioners flock to, Chen Mo solved the mystery of why Jiang Wen's soul had not been extinguished for decades. Even for evil spirits, if the soul is exposed to the outside for a long time, it will become increasingly weak. Only by devouring the souls of others, absorbing yin crystals, and nourishing in a specific environment can the value of the divine essence remain unchanged. The 100-year-old locust tree is the core of the earth lizard tribe. Dozens of elite earth lizards are guarding in all directions around it. Not only were they more sturdy and strong than the scouts Chen Mo had seen before, they were also covered in leather armor made of blood wolf skin, which protected their throats, lower bodies, left chests and other vital parts. In their slender hands were carefully polished wooden and bone weapons. Although the shapes were strange and not uniform at all, these weapons all showed that the lizardmen were an intelligent race that knew how to make weapons. Even if their intelligence was extremely low, they were fundamentally different from the beasts that ate raw meat and drank blood. If they were allowed to develop for 1,000 years, they might have the opportunity to grow into a highly intelligent species. The latest novels were first published on the 69th book bar. Ling. According to the memories of the captured lizardman, the evil spirit Jiang Wen was once the guardian spirit of this alien tribe. He relied on pretending to be a ghost to absorb all kinds of emotions of the lizardman and nourish his own soul. There should be a priest in the tribe who can communicate with Jiang Wen and convey his orders. If I can replace him, maybe. Chen Mo thought in his heart that if he wanted to get the heart of the locust tree, it would not work if he broke in by force. He could only use his wits. Therefore, he kept moving his position under the shadow of the surrounding locust trees to find the location of the lizardman's priest. In the core area of the tribe, near a single-family wooden hut, Chen Mo saw a young lizardman leaning on a cane. It has a pair of emerald green eyes, which are not as turbid as those of its kind, but are unusually clear and flashing with wisdom. It is also very clean, without a trace of body odor, and its scales are clean and combed. There is not even a bit of dirt or blood. This young lizardman, walking among a group of rude and ignorant people, seems out of place. It looks like a civilized ground lizard man. If we follow it, we should be able to find the most civilized priest in the tribe. Chen Mo followed the young ground lizard man silently, and finally, in a medicinal garden, he saw the genuine priest, and there was no elite ground lizard man guarding it. Teacher, I am here to learn herbal knowledge from you. The young ground lizard man saluted and greeted the elderly priest. The priest had a hunched body, cloudy eyes, and it seemed that his ears were not working well. It was not until the young ground lizard man called out 3 times that he reacted and said okay. Then, there was a dead silence until the ground lizard man priest sighed and broke the silence. The guardian spirit in the locust tree has not made a sound for dozens of days. If something really happens to it, our tribe will not be able to defend this habitat. Chapter 113 Blending In. The guardian spirit, it has been shattered, it will never come back. Chen Mo emerged from the shadows, looking at the 2 civilized earth lizards leisurely. The face of the earth lizard priest changed drastically, and he pushed the student away, roaring at him to leave. Although his eyes were blurry, his years of survival experience told the earth lizard priest that the creature walking upright in front of him was very powerful. Otherwise, he would not dare to appear in the earth lizard tribe so carelessly. Can it leave? Chen Mo mocked lightly. The 2 earth lizards, one old and one young, realized that the 3 people present had been shrouded in thick black fog. The Yingxing magic, ghost wall, this is my first time to perform it. The language Chen Mo spoke was naturally not the obscure language of the earth lizards. No matter how smart the 2 people in front of him were, they could not understand it, but their biological instincts conveyed a bad message. The young lizard tried to run for hundreds of meters, but found himself still spinning in the same place. The black fog around him was so dark that he couldn't see his hand in front of his face. He couldn't help but reveal a look of despair. Ling. The lizard priest, his cultivation was all given by the evil spirit Jiang Wen. With the death of the evil spirit Jiang Wen, he is now immortal and has no threat at all. The explanation of the chip made Chen Mo understand why this priest with the highest status in the lizard tribe had no key training at all. It turns out that he relied on the evil spirit's thigh to get to the top. He's really a weak chicken, but it's good this way. Disguised as you, giving orders, it's more natural. In his heart, he was extremely disdainful of the priest, but in order to complete the plan of plundering spiritual materials, Chen Mo had to rely on its identity, so he didn't kill it. As for its young student, he was not so lucky. He was strangled by the shroud and suffocated to death. Taking out a bottle of soul-enchanting liquid, Chen Mo put it in front of the nose of the lizard priest and forced it to sniff it. Although he didn't know what the hell this thing was, the earth lizard priest instinctively didn't want to inhale it. He held his breath, his eyes spitting fire, and glared at Chen Mo. You have no cultivation now, and your life and death are in my hands. It's not up to you to decide whether to smell it or not. Chen Mo sneered, pinched the earth lizard priest's dry nose, condensed a stream of yin spirit, opened its tightly closed mouth, and poured all the soul-bewitching liquid into its trachea. No need to smell it, just drink it directly, it will be more effective this way. Soul-bewitching liquid is a drug that makes people lose their minds, but their bodies can still move. It is very simple to prepare, but it can only be used on those with low cultivation. It is perfect for the earth lizard priest. After the soul-bewitching liquid was swallowed, the drug took effect immediately. The anger in his eyes disappeared, replaced by a kind of indifference, or even dullness. Even if Chen Mo released his control over the earth lizard priest, it did not shout or scream, and behaved like an emotionless zombie. Ling. The effect of the ecstasy liquid is effective for half an hour. Please hurry up and issue the command. Chen Mo took out the bone-dissolving water and dripped it on the body of the young lizard man, destroying it. Then, he took out the blood wolf skin that had just been peeled off from the storage bag, and put it on his body without revealing a single bit of skin, regardless of the bloody smell left on it. Then he painted his eyes with green fluorescent moss to disguise them as the eyes of a lizard man. In a blink of an eye, Chen Mo became a fake lizard man. Judging from his appearance, he could still get away with it. Next, it depends on whether your identity as a priest is useful. Chen Mo was mentally prepared to gamble. If he followed this zombie into the century-old locust tree and had to undergo a full-body examination, Chen Mo would have to give up his established plan and flee. The host's escape route and escape plan have been planned, and the survival rate is as high as 89%. Please feel free to go to the 100-year-old locust tree. Preparing for a rainy day has always been the chip's code of conduct. With its guarantee, Chen Mo is full of courage. Although under the blood wolf skin is a human body, he still believes that he can get away with it. Chen Mo supported the unconscious ground lizard priest and walked back and forth in the medicine garden several times. With the help of the chip's judgment, it was no different from the active walking of the priest, so they walked towards the 100-year-old locust tree together. The ordinary ground lizards encountered along the way bowed their heads and bowed respectfully when they saw this respected priest. Even if they had never seen the creature following behind him, they did not dare to step forward to ask. The status of the priest is very high. This time it is stable. Chen Mo only showed a pair of disguised eyes to observe the outside world. He found that he was very safe all the way and finally put down his hanging heart. Master Priest, what are you doing? And this guy? In front of the 100-year-old locust tree, a ground lizard guard dressed a level higher than his companions stood up and stretched out his hand to stop Chen Mo. The latest novels are first published on the 69th book bar. It was the first one who dared to ask the ground lizard priest questions, but its attitude was still very respectful. After asking the questions, it stared at its toes and did not dare to look at the priest. Otherwise, if the staring time was too long, it might find that the priest's eyes were dull and abnormal. This is a sacrifice requested by the great guardian spirit. How can you, a guard, have the right to speak too much? Chen Mo had stored a piece of audio in advance with a sound stone and placed it under the collar of the ground lizard priest. Now it came in handy. With just such a simple reply, the guards gave way and did not dare to verify the true identity of this sacrifice. It seems that this old priest is not honest. He did not announce to the public that his guardian spirit is missing and his own cultivation is completely lost. Seeing the reaction of the earth lizard guards, Chen Mo guessed the truth of the matter. This earth lizard priest relied on organizing the tribe members to worship and provide emotional food for the evil spirit Jiang Wen, which is why he has a lofty status and prestige in the tribe. Therefore, even if the evil spirit Jiang Wen is in trouble, he can't contact him no matter how hard he tries, and the earth lizard priest dare not make this fact public. At this time, its residual power is still there, and the elite earth lizards who guard the 100-year-old locust tree naturally dare not disobey. After all, theoretically, this 100-year-old locust tree is the home of the earth lizard priest, and it is the tribal holy place where it communicates with the guardian spirit alone. As expected, Chen Mo successfully entered the 100-year-old locust tree and saw the hollow trunk. This is an extremely simple space, without any extra decorations. There is only a slowly beating green heart on a stone platform in the center. The light it emits seems to have evil intentions. This is the heart of the locust tree, the life box of the evil spirit Jiang Wen. Chen Mo revealed a greedy look. After the transformation of the evil spirit Jiang Wen, this natural spiritual material, the heart of the locust tree, can already be used as a life box for the soul. If it is sold, countless ghost cultivators will go bankrupt for it. Chapter 114 False Order. When Chen Mo's mind was attracted by the locust tree heart, the lizardman priest, due to old age and frailty and no one to support him, fell to the ground, his head hit a protruding object with a bang, and fainted. With the treasure in front of him, Chen Mo had no time to care about it. He strode forward, jumped lightly, and took down the locust tree heart suspended in the air. It was warm and delicate to the touch. With a light pinch, the locust tree heart, which was less than the size of a fist, even bounced a little, like soft rubber. In the green locust tree heart, there was a piece of yin crystal the size of a fingernail, which was the remains of the evil spirit Jiang Wen. However, Since it has been more than a month since its soul flew away, the cold evil spirit on the surface of the yin crystal has almost dissipated, and the strange light has converged, looking ordinary. This is the only legacy left by the evil spirit Jiang Wen. A mere piece of yin crystal was not enough to satisfy Chen Mo. He was a little disappointed and wondered, it is not the guardian spirit of the Earth Lizard tribe, so it doesn't have a private treasury. Ling. The entire Earth Lizard tribe is the huge legacy left by the evil spirit Jiang Wen for the host. The host can use the order of the guardian spirit to drive all the Earth Lizards. The chip made a vicious plan. This is why Chen Mo risked his life to sneak into this century-old locust tree. With his spiritual consciousness released, Chen Mo felt that there was a secret door left by the evil spirit Jiang Wen in the trunk where he was. Through it, he could control the huge face on the bark. Fortunately, the locust tree gathers yin, and the marks left by the evil spirit can be preserved for a year or so, otherwise I really can't pretend to be a ghost perfectly. Chen Mo secretly said that he was lucky. Ling. The data interface is found. The host needs to adjust its own soul characteristics to complete the connection. Even for the same creature, the soul characteristics of different individuals are different. The soul flexibility, vibration frequency, and intensity are obviously different. It is an identity proof that is more recognizable than the physical appearance, body odor, and figure. If Chen Mo wants to borrow the mark left by the evil spirit on the century-old locust tree, he must simulate its soul characteristics. For ordinary practitioners, this behavior of stealing the soul identity of others is extremely difficult. As long as there is a mistake in one aspect, it will fail. But for the chip, this kind of data analysis is the simplest, and it will simulate the soul model of the evil spirit Jiang Wen in Chen Mo's mind. As long as Chen Mo injects the appropriate amount of divine energy according to the instructions. The whole counterfeiting process took less than a minute. The divine consciousness spread to the bark of the century-old locust tree, and Chen Mo's perspective also changed. He felt that he had become the huge human face on the trunk, overlooking the surrounding lizard guards. Subconsciously opening his mouth, Chen Mo made a meaningless cough. Near the locust tree, the alert ground lizard guards immediately reacted, put down their crude weapons, knelt on one knee, and worshipped the human face on the tree. It has been more than a month since the last appearance of this guardian spirit. Although the ground lizard priests have always claimed that the guardian spirit is only in seclusion, the ground lizard guards are still uneasy, thinking that they have not been able to protect well and have offended the guardian spirit. Seeing the movement of the human face on the tree, they finally put their minds at ease, chattering, expressing the praise and respect for the guardian spirit. Ling. The ground lizard guards have detected intense mental fluctuations, which contain rich emotions. With specific skills, they can be absorbed, but they are easily affected and have sequelae of schizophrenia. It is not recommended that the host choose to absorb it without choosing food. Chen Mo felt that in the void, there was an invisible and immaterial energy gathering towards the human face on the tree trunk, and then, along the marks arranged by the evil spirit, it was transmitted all the way to the tree trunk. The heart of the locust tree in his hand beat faster, and Chen Mo had a vague feeling that it seemed to want to absorb the emotions of the earth lizard people. Ling. The heart of the locust tree has been infected by 12% of the emotions of various earth lizard people. The soul dwelling in it is very likely to produce negative states such as extreme, irritable, and excited. It is recommended that the host refine it before selling it. The evil spirit is the product of the soul falling into an extremely negative state, with various mental illnesses. The various emotions in the heart of the locust tree naturally have no effect on Jiang Wen, who has become an evil spirit. It laid this human face mark to collect the emotions of the earth lizard people and nourish its own soul. However, if Chen Mo wants to sell the heart of the locust tree to the ghost cultivator, he must erase the traces left by the previous evil spirit, otherwise its value will be greatly reduced. Ling. I suggest that the host soak the heart of the locust tree in glazed ice water. After 3 months, all kinds of emotions in it will completely disappear. Chen Mo put away the heart of the locust tree, and then, concentrating, using the human face on the bark, issued orders to the entire tribe of earth lizards. Everyone go out and kill all the blood wolves. The latest novel is first published on the 69th book bar. Manipulating the marks left by the evil spirit, Chen Mo issued a war mobilization order in the language of the earth lizards through the mouth of the human face, causing the earth lizards nearby who heard the oracle of the guardian spirit to riot. The whole tribe came out in full force, not just a simple hunt, but a gamble of the lives and property of the whole tribe. If one is not careful, It will be a miserable end of everyone feeding the blood wolves. Chen Mo's ideal was while the snipe and the clam fight, the fisherman benefits. The more fiercely the earth lizard man fought with the other creatures in the cave, the fuller the fruit he would harvest in the end. Tonic medicine, 1 pill per person, take it. If you want a horse to run, you have to feed it enough grass. One by one, blood red pills sprayed out from the mouth of the tree trunk face, scattered all over the ground. This is the blood-burning pill that Chen Mo paid for from his own pocket and gave to the earth lizard man. It can boil the qi and blood of living beings, giving people the illusion of being full of energy but nowhere to vent. The effect of the medicine can last for an hour. After it ends, the qi and blood will decline, and life will not last long. The blood-burning pill is cheap, sufficient to satisfy the hunger, can improve the essence of the person who takes the medicine, and has a milky fragrance. The earth lizard man, who was not very intelligent, thought it was some kind of precious spiritual material, and did not test whether the medicine was strong or poisonous. He picked up the blood-burning pill from the ground and swallowed it in one gulp. Several greedy earth lizards were addicted to the pleasure of increased physical strength. They wanted to eat more pills to become stronger, and even competed with their companions for the limited number of blood-burning pills. Chen Mo saw this ignorant and fearless scene, laughed in his heart, and generously used up the stock in his hand. In a moment, the blood-burning pills were scattered all over the ground, and the earth lizards were like sharks smelling blood, looking for food everywhere. Since the only 2 master and apprentices in the entire tribe who were proficient in the medicinal properties of herbs were solved by Chen Mo, this group of drug feasts did not have a rational earth lizard standing up to stop it. Chapter 115, The Killing Continues. The ground lizards stimulated by the blood-burning pills were enslaved by bloodthirsty desires without Chen Mo's bewitching. They ran out of the locust tree forest in groups of 3 or 5. Their eyes were red, and they tried their best to find living cave creatures to vent their energy that had nowhere to be released. Not only the blood wolves, but also the maggots crawling on the ground became the targets of the ground lizards. Wherever they went, it was like a locust plague, with corpses everywhere and lives in ruins. On weekdays, large prey that often required 3 or 5 people to cooperate to kill fell in front of the crazy ground lizards. The most efficient killers were the elite ground lizards guarding the century-old locust tree. They had already understood the simple use of Qi Yuan, and condensed various spiritual energies at the sharp points of their weapons, greatly increasing the lethality when piercing flesh and blood. The ground lizard tribe in the locust tree forest came out in full force, with great momentum, and their influence gradually expanded, attracting the attention of countless creatures in the cave. Originally, with the protection of the evil spirit Jiang Wen, the locust tree forest had been designated as the habitat of the earth lizards. Except for the young blood wolf that had just been driven out of the wolf pack, no carnivorous animal would cross the border to hunt. Correspondingly, the area bordering the locust tree forest was by default a hunting ground for the other cave creatures. However, the effect of the blood-burning pill had blinded the minds of all the earth lizards. They roared and stepped into the territory of the nearby cave creatures. One after another, the cave monsters of different shapes and levels of cultivation jumped out from the caves, cracks in the rocks, and bushes, fighting tooth for tooth and blood for blood with a huge number of earth lizards. However, among these carnivores, there was no one with strength higher than the 9th level of Qi training, and they could not stop the earth lizards rushing like a tide. Even the most powerful stone-skinned wild boar among them could not withstand the siege of 10 drug-taking earth lizard guards. The sharp fangs tore apart the 5 earth lizard guards, but the armor of the stone-skinned wild boar condensed with earth spirit energy could not hold on and broke apart. It was suddenly stabbed in the neck by an earth lizard guard. The sharp tip of the bone spear spewed out more a ball of bright yellow flames, piercing the neck of the black-skinned wild boar and igniting its dense hair. The dark monster wild boar instantly turned into a roasted whole pig. Because its fat was thick and dense, it provided sufficient fuel for the spiritual fire summoned by the earth lizard guards. Even though the black-skinned wild boar rolled back and forth on the muddy ground 3 or 4 times, it could not put out the fire. With its neck injured and its body on fire, the 6th-grade monster gradually stopped struggling, its limbs limp, and fell to the ground. The excited earth lizard man did not care about the still hot body of the black-skinned wild boar, and directly took action, tearing off pieces of charred flesh and swallowing them in big mouthfuls. It was with the power of the blood-burning pill that the earth lizard man had the courage and stamina to fight against a black-skinned wild boar. Normally, the earth lizard man priests would hunt down the monster beasts like the black-skinned wild boar with the help of the power of the evil spirits. The final spoils of war were delicacies that only the priests could enjoy. The blood and flesh essence of the sixth-grade monster beast was full of temptation, and the crazy earth lizard man quickly devoured its mountain-like body. The blood-burning pill gave the earth lizard man an hour of explosive strength at the cost of overdrawing his lifespan in blood. The longer the battle, the greater the physical consumption, and the faster he would enter a weak state of limb weakness and body aches. However, these earth lizard men who fought bloody battles were supplemented with the energy of the black-skinned wild boar's flesh and blood, which gave them another period of hot-blooded explosive strength, and even gave them the illusion that they were getting stronger with each battle. Therefore, the invasion of the earth lizards became more frenzied. They not only killed every creature that blocked their way, but also gnawed their bodies cleanly, leaving only a skeleton without a trace of flesh and blood. Finally, the unscrupulous killing of the earth lizards attracted the attention of creatures of the same level, a large number of blood wolves. When the difference in cultivation is not big, the group can always fight against a group. The blood wolf pack that just arrived at this battlefield is slightly less in number than the earth lizard tribe, but the average individual strength is relatively high. As soon as they clashed, the battle became a stalemate. The head wolf didn't know what was wrong with these earth lizards, daring to cross the border and kill nearby cave creatures. But now, the enemy has reached the doorstep. As the pride of the ninth-grade demon beast, the Wolf King did not fear the battle. He howled to the sky and sent out his blood wolf guards. These blood wolves are half a head taller than their peers, with a stronger physique, and the tendons on their limbs are tight and bulging. At first glance, they are extremely violent killing machines. As soon as they joined the battlefield, they broke the balance between the two species. Even the most elite earth lizard guards were no match for the blood wolf guards. They were defeated by their claws, fangs, and even wind blade breath. Chen Mo quietly followed the earth lizards all the way and understood why they could not win despite their large numbers. Even though the earth lizard guards had simple leather armor and long-range attack weapons, they did not know how to cooperate with each other and were cut apart and defeated one by the blood wolf guards, who were a head stronger than them. Although the blood wolves were monsters, their intelligence was not low. At least in hunting, they could crush the earth lizards. The latest novels are first published on Liuji 9 Shuba. Wolfpack tactics are not just for fun. What a bunch of useless trash, I have to take sides. Chen Mo certainly didn't want to see the earth lizard tribe defeated. If that happened, wouldn't his plan to collect the blood wolf corpses and nearby spiritual materials fail? Chen Mo didn't bother to hide himself. With the help of Yan Qingyi wings, he floated in the air, took out a bunch of blood-colored powder from the storage bag, and sprinkled it on every earth lizard with a gust of yin wind. Burning blood, boiling blood. Chen Mo uttered two phrases. As soon as the voice fell, the blood-colored powder shone brightly, and then penetrated into the bodies of the earth lizards, causing their bodies to swell by more than half, turning into small giants, and greatly improving their physical fitness. The sudden power made it difficult for the blood wolf guards to advance any further. They were even pierced through the bodies by the bone spears of the earth lizard guards one after another because they were caught off guard. However, the good times didn't last long. The powder made by crushing the burning blood pills stimulated the earth lizards again from outside the body. Although the power of the burning blood pills in their blood was brought out, it caused a great burden on their bodies. Scales were broken, skin was bleeding. Even for the elite earth lizard guards whose essence reached 8.0, their bodies were on the verge of collapse. In a moment, the effect of the medicine would wear off and they would become fish on the chopping board. Chen Mo showed a cruel smile, opened his red lips and uttered the word explosion. Bang bang bang, the earth lizard's body expanded by another 30% like a balloon. Finally, their bones, muscles, skin and flesh could no longer hold on and burst. The gorgeous flesh and blood fireworks began. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 116, The Destruction of the Clan. There is a limit to the amount of blood-burning pills that the body can withstand. Without Chen Mo's stimulation, the worst fate for the earth lizards would be bleeding from all 7 orifices and dying. But now, they are expanding and bursting one after another, bone and flesh dregs shot out in all directions like sharp arrows, not only leaving no bones of the earth lizards, but also the blood wolves around them, which were beaten into a hornet's nest. Those with bad luck were directly pierced into the heart and lungs by sharp bone fragments, and died instantly. Injure 1,000 enemies and lose 800 of your own. Under the attack of the tragic chain of flesh bombs, the Blood Wolf Pack's formation was in chaos. Even with the Wolf King suppressing them from behind, most of the Blood Wolves showed a look of fear and retreated like a tide. However, the Earth Lizards were still deeply trapped in the desire for bloodthirstiness and killing, striding forward and biting the retreating Blood Wolves tightly. Under the stimulation of the blood-burning pill, the surviving ground lizards lost all their rationality. They used their hands and feet, biting with their teeth, dragging many blood wolves with weaker physiques and drowning them in the sea of green scales. Blood-red blood and meat shreds were constantly flying and thrown into the air. This was the scene of crazy ground lizards fighting for spoils. Even on the battlefield, they did not forget to devour fresh flesh and blood. After a long time, the effect of the blood-burning pill was exhausted, and the ground lizards fell to the ground one after another. The Blood Wolf Pack also seized the opportunity and completed the retreat. The two tribes separated again, turning into two distinct camps, one red and one blue, confronting each other in the air. The Blood Wolf King came out, staring at the surviving ground lizards with gloomy wolf eyes. This fight left only 1 in 10 of its wolf packs alive, and it was impossible to keep the original hunting area, but the harvest was not much. The flesh and blood of the ground lizards was sour and bitter, and it didn't want to gnaw on them every day. Spitting out a wind blade, cutting off a limp ground lizard guard in half, the Blood Wolf King verified his guess. The ground lizard had lost its fighting power. Raising his head and howling in excitement, the Blood Wolf King issued a no survivors slaughter order. One by one, the blood wolves rushed towards the scattered ground lizards, eager for revenge, biting off their necks one by one. The most ferocious blood wolf guards directly used their sharp forelimbs to tear them alive and cut them into pieces. The blood wolf guards were always at the forefront of the battlefield during the fight, so they suffered the most casualties under the previous blood explosion offensive. Those who survived were all quick to see the opportunity and hide their bodies behind their companions or ground lizards, so that they used their flesh shields to block the flying bones and flesh debris. Therefore, the blood wolf guards were most angry at the ground lizards, and they were particularly fierce and violent when they beat the drowned dogs at this time. However, among the lizardmen, there are still strong ones who are unwilling to accept their fate. They are more than 10 elite lizardmen led by the head of the guard team and the chief of the tribe. They formed a circle with their backs to each other, and the bone spears in their hands were all facing the outside, making the last struggle. However, even if the remaining lizardmen are determined, their bodies have long been hollowed out by the blood-burning pills. If they hadn't leaned on their companions, they would not be able to stand at all. Their arms are shaking, and their mouths and noses are bleeding. I'm afraid they can't even hold their weapons steadily. These elite lizardmen are really powerful, but it's a pity that it's just a trapped beast fighting. Chen Mo, who was watching the battle not far away, secretly admired and had some respect for the low-level alien race of the lizardmen. With a birth of spiritual intelligence, living beings will have various complex emotions. For the lizardmen, their emotions include blind worship of guardian spirits, awe of sacrifices, and tenacity to not give up hope. These are the differences between alien races and beasts that eat raw meat and drink blood. Being called an alien race means not only forming a racial language, knowing how to practice magic, but also having human-like emotions. Only when they are close to humans in all aspects can they be called an alien race. Otherwise, they are just beasts, monsters, and evil creatures. This is just like the standard of transformation into human. Physical appearance is only the most basic first step, and having human emotions and wisdom is the key second step. Only in this way can the path of transformation and cultivation of non-human creatures become wider and wider, and go further and further. Under Chen Mo's gaze, the elite lizardmen who carried the hope of the tribe fell under the sharp teeth and claws of the blood wolf. When they were dying, their eyes shed tears of blood, and they roared unwillingly. Some of them even temporarily recovered their intelligence and questioned, "Where's the guardian spirit?" This encounter of almost annihilation caused the collapse of their faith in their hearts, and they became suspicious and dissatisfied with the guardian spirit of the tribe. It's a pity that you will never find the answer to this matter until you die. With Chip acting as a simultaneous interpreter, Chen Mo clearly felt the despair, anger, and regret of the earth lizards. But he would not take the initiative to stand up and stop the blood wolf pack just because he sympathized with the destruction of the earth lizards. Chen Mo still hoped that the remaining earth lizards' elites could consume more of the blood wolf's physical strength. As the Black Hand that caused the genocide in front of him, Chen Mo had no regrets at all. In his opinion, this was just a normal phenomenon of the law of the jungle in the cultivation world. Without the stimulation of the blood-burning pills I provided, given the distance between the territories of the two tribes, one day, they would fight over the issue of prey distribution. I just accelerated the process. Chen Mo curled his lips, thinking that the Earth Lizard tribe was too weak. Even with him pulling the strings, they did not achieve a lose-lose outcome with the Blood Wolf pack. Fortunately, the hidden hand allied was more than just the blood-burning pills. Chen Mo continued to lie dormant, waiting for the best time to enter. The latest novel is published on 69 Shuba. Bang! The sound of the last body falling to the ground lingered above the battlefield, like a mournful music played for the extermination of the Earth Lizards. All the Earth Lizards, young and old, fell in front of the Blood Wolf pack, and not a single one survived. Their deaths were particularly miserable, with their eyes wide open and their eyes wide open. However, the final resistance of the Earth Lizard elite also caused some casualties to the Blood Wolf pack. Almost all the Blood Wolf guards who came forward to finish off the blood and flesh fireworks were dragged to the bottom by them in exchange for their lives. On the tragic battlefield, only the 9th grade monster Blood Wolf King was left, with 3 concubines and more than 10 ordinary blood wolves that retreated in time. The Blood Wolf King's hair was not damaged and not stained with a trace of blood. This is because it cherishes its life very much, and would rather all its men die than risk its own life. At this time, the Blood Wolf King was extremely angry, but he felt fortunate in his heart, proud of his own wit. If it had led the charge instead of shouting come on, it would be it that fell to the ground now. Not only would the throne of the Wolf King be lost, but even the 3 charming female blood wolves behind it would be taken away by him. A blood wolf who doesn't want to be the Wolf King is not a good blood wolf. These guys behind it are drooling over the throne of the Wolf King. Carefully stepping into the center of the battlefield where the battle was the most brutal, the Blood Wolf King was thinking of touching the corpse. Maybe he could find some precious spiritual materials from the leader of the Earth Lizard Man to improve his cultivation. As long as I am alive and my cultivation is still there, I can pull up a brand new Blood Wolf pack at any time. This is what the Blood Wolf King really thinks. The survival rule of the Wolf pack is extremely simple: the strong is the king. As long as it can defeat the Wolf King of a Blood Wolf pack, it can take away everything from the loser, including the Wolf pack, personal guards, and mother wolves. Even though his men are close to death, the Blood Wolf King has not lost hope of life, but is just a little sad in his heart. Relying only on the current manpower, the majestic scene of hundreds of wolves galloping when the Wolf King is on patrol cannot be reproduced. However, the Blood Wolf King, who was pacing on the battlefield, suddenly had a bad premonition in his heart. His limbs became weak and he was almost tripped by the remains of a ground lizard man. Looking back at his companions behind him, the Blood Wolf King found that their performance was even worse, as if they were drunk, staggering and falling from side to side. In the blink of an eye, the blood wolves fell to the ground like rolling gourds. 2,500 collections, and now there are less than 100 average subscriptions, and the subscription ratio is not even 25:1. Alice, I hope book friends will subscribe. Chapter 117, The Beast Still Fights. The blood-depleting powder I carefully prepared tastes good, right? Chen Mo's voice sounded faintly behind the Blood Wolf King, like a Yama who was asking for his life. Even the Blood Wolf King, who had experienced many battles, was frightened by the sudden noise. He staggered and almost lost his balance. With its perception, it was bullied within 5 steps without noticing. The Blood Wolf King guessed that the person must be a powerful enemy of the same level or even stronger. He immediately roared and used his best talent. However, the green halo just appeared around the Blood Wolf King, and then it was exhausted. With a puff, it dissipated. I don't know when, the Blood Wolf King's Qi Si was empty, and there was not enough Qi Yuan to track the free spiritual energy of heaven and earth. At this time, on the battlefield where blood was flowing, strands of blood-colored silk threads rose up, like a poisonous snake asking for life, and entangled the limbs of the remaining blood wolf. These blood threads, like maggots on the tarsal bones, were accompanied by a decadent sound, which was so pleasant to the ears that the blood wolves were all exhausted and their energy was greatly reduced. At the same time, the corpses on the ground, whether they were blood wolves or lizardmen, all made sizzling sounds and began to rot rapidly. After a while, only piles of bones were left on the battlefield. A large amount of blood and flesh essence was vaporized and merged into the blood-colored threads, which greatly increased its momentum and even formed a sticky blood mist that enveloped all the blood wolves. One after another, the blood wolves were exhausted and fell to the ground unwillingly. However, the blood mist still did not give up, and continued to drill into their 7 orifices and began to corrupt their internal organs. Only the Blood Wolf King struggled to stand in place and glared at Chen Mo. He waved his hand, indicating that this was just a small trick that could not be put on the table, but the undisguised smile on Chen Mo's face showed the pleasure of his evil plan succeeding. 9th grade demon beast, corresponding to the 9th level of key training, but it has not become a piece of fat meat on my chopping board. With only the 3rd level of key training, Chen Mo is proud of himself for achieving this. As early as when the ground lizards and blood wolves were fighting, Chen Mo had quietly sprinkled a large amount of blood septic powder into the air, using the bloody smell bred by the corpses everywhere to secretly affect the physical condition of all creatures on the battlefield. If you enter an abalone shop, you will not smell the stench for a long time, and you will become one with it. This is what the Blood Wolf King is experiencing now. On the battlefield where the 2 tribes fought, the smell of blood and feces and urine was too strong, which concealed the unique stench of blood septic powder, causing the Blood Wolf King to absorb a large amount of toxic gas without knowing it. Over time, the blood septic powder exerted its medicinal power, and even with the physique of the Blood Wolf King, it could not withstand its corrosive power, and its combat power was only 1/10 of it. Watching his men howling and dying one by one, the Blood Wolf King was filled with grief and anger. He used all his strength to pounce on Chen Mo. "Why do you fight when you are trapped?" Chen Mo sighed softly and waved his fingers. The blood mist that filled the battlefield gathered around him, forming an airtight blood-colored barrier. The blood septic powder contained in it, stimulated by Chen Mo's Qi Yuan, burned out of thin air, adding another layer of insurance to this protective shield. Sizzle. Ignoring the blazing blood flames, the Blood Wolf King's claws scratched the blood-colored barrier, leaving a half-meter-long scratch, and then there was no more progress. Through the blood-colored barrier, Chen Mo even saw the blood between the Blood Wolf King's teeth. This was its undigested breakfast. Retreat. Chen's mocking smile, which made the enemy angry, appeared again. Then, Chen Mo pushed forward with both hands, and the blood-colored barrier moved forward, squeezing the burly body of the Blood Wolf King. The recoil force was so great that the Blood Wolf King was flung away at a speed faster than when he pounced forward. Just giving drugs seems too mean of me, but using the blood energy and blood destroying powder on the battlefield to form this blood transforming formation with both offensive and defensive capabilities is the embodiment of my wisdom. As a matter of course, Chen Mo took the chip design plan for himself and mocked the Blood Wolf King, who wanted to drag him to hell. During this time of talking nonsense, the blood-colored barrier around Chen Mo stared for another 3 points. According to the calculation of the chip, ordinary magic, without a power of more than 10 degrees, could not break it with one blow. And once it failed to succeed in one blow, with a continuous blood and Qi on the battlefield, the blood-colored barrier would not have the problem of lack of successor. With this blood-transforming formation, Chen Mo is already invincible. After the Blood Wolf King tried it once, he recognized this cruel fact and understood that it was not a question of revenge or not, but whether he could successfully escape with his tail between his legs. With a turn of his eyes, the cunning Blood Wolf King pretended to fight to the death and jumped up, but in mid-air, he bent an arc and passed by Chen Mo and ran away. "Can you get away?" Chen Mo admired the Blood Wolf King's dying struggle with disdain. With a thought, he controlled the blood mist to chase the timid prey. The thick blood mist turned into a blurry blood dragon, with a ferocious blood mouth, following the gliding and fleeing Blood Wolf King. Bite, bite, bite. Like a commander in cockfighting, Chen Mo instructed the blood dragon to keep closing its bloody mouth. The target was the round buttocks of the Blood Wolf King. There was also a huge furry wolf tail sandwiched between the buttocks, which was full of temptation to the blood dragon behind the Blood Wolf King. It is recommended that the host speed up the frequency of the blood dragon's mouth biting, which can form a strong psychological pressure on the Blood Wolf King, deform its fleeing movements, and increase the success rate of pursuit by 23%. The latest novel is first published on the 69th book bar. The chase and the escape are not only about who has longer legs and more endurance, but also about the strength of the psychological defense line. Chen Mo has the guidance of the chip and uses all the means that can be put on the table and can't be put on the table to stimulate the Blood Wolf King. Even Chen Mo shamelessly pulled one of the Blood Wolf King's concubines to his side, stroked its smooth back, and loudly mocked the Blood Wolf King for abandoning even his spouse. After a series of means, the Blood Wolf King really turned his head to take a look. This time, his eyes were about to burst, and he subconsciously turned his head and stopped. "I got you, little rabbit." Although Chen Mo's hands were rubbing the back of the mother wolf, most of his attention was on the Blood Wolf King. Seeing it returning its head, he manipulated the Blood Dragon to increase its speed and split it halfway, blocking the Blood Wolf King's retreat from all directions. Chen Mo clenched his right hand, controlling the blood mist to become thicker and thicker, compressing the Blood Wolf King's activity space. "Oh!" The Blood Wolf King felt that the air had become extremely heavy, and he realized that he had been provoked by Chen Mo, and he regretted it. However, there was highly corrosive blood mist in all directions, and its body, which had been injected with a blood-destroying powder, had no physical strength to break through. The Blood Wolf King could only gather spiritual energy like crazy to protect himself, and condensed a thin layer of green wind attribute shield on his hair. However, this protective film was constantly worn away by the blood mist at a speed visible to the naked eye. Struggling, roaring, begging. The Blood Wolf King tried all kinds of moves 3 or 4 times, but it didn't change Chen Mo's determination to kill. A 9th-grade demon beast has a strong recovery ability. If I don't kill it while it's weak, I will be the one to die in the future. In less than an instant stick of time, only a broken wolf corpse was left on the spot. Alice, in order to ensure that there is no risk, the spoils were destroyed like this. Chen Mo sighed, but could only accept the result that the wolf corpse was 43% damaged. At this time, Chen Mo was the only living being still breathing on the entire battlefield. Chapter 118 Scraping the Ground. A strong smell of blood rose to the sky, lingering in the air for a long time. This huge movement was clearly visible within a radius of several miles. Although the blood corpses everywhere were an irresistible temptation for the hungry cave creatures, no scavengers came until the dust settled on the battlefield. The corpse gas, death gas, and blood gas produced by the bloody fight between the two tribes were too strong, scaring away every cave creature that wanted to pick up the leak. Therefore, when touching the corpse, Chen Mo was very lucky and was not disturbed at all. After peeling off a few pieces of the best blood wolf skins, Chen Mo was in high spirits and felt that the plan of fighting between the two tribes that he had planned was perfect. Without any effort, hundreds of cave creatures were solved. The remains alone can be sold for thousands of low-level spirit stones. This does not include the harvest from the blood wolf's lair later. Chen Mo was very excited. After a simple estimate, he found that this kind of genocide and plunder made much more money than raising insects for Guxi. No wonder the demon sect doesn't focus on time-consuming and labor-intensive development methods such as farming and breeding. It's really that the efficiency of plundering resources is too high. When money is tight, just rob directly. There are too many targets to choose from on the entire West Coast, including alien races, the Kyanitian Empire, and the righteous. After experiencing plundering for the first time, Chen Mo had a personal experience of the demon sect's rule of taking everything as leaks and nourishing itself, and a seed of greedy plunder was planted in his heart. It is not recommended that the host plunder resources everywhere like a locust passing through. The risk is too great. If you often walk by the river, how can you not get your shoes wet? The chip poured a basin of cold water on the restless Chen Mo, reminding him that he only had the cultivation level of the 3rd level of key training and still needed to develop in a miserable way. In order to prevent the bloody smell here from being too strong and attracting the attention of creatures at the 12th level of key training or even the supernatural power stage, it is recommended that the host speed up the cleaning of the battlefield and race against time to the blood wolf's lair to search for spoils. Hearing this, Chen Mo was shocked and sped up his movements. He even used his mind to do 3 things at once. He condensed 2 yin spiritual arms on his back. Together with his hands, the forearms started working together to peel off one blood wolf skin after another. These are all top-quality leather materials, silky smooth, and naturally warm. However, they are the raw materials for underwear that many female key trainers admire. Compared with those sold to male key trainers, the unit price is about 10% higher. Therefore, when Chen Mo peeled the skin, he was particularly meticulous and could not bear to destroy the original texture of the blood wolf skin. Unfortunately, there are only a few that are in good condition. Most of the blood wolf skins are covered with pits and pits of the teeth and claws of the ground lizard people. The blood transformation array was still running, gathering the blood energy that permeated the battlefield bit by bit, and finally, It condensed into a red bead in front of Chen Mo, the blood coagulation bead. The blood coagulation bead was only the size of a soybean, but it contained abundant energy. It was made of the bones of the earth lizard people and blood wolves. For the magic monks, it was a good material for refining filthy magic weapons. Drop. The blood coagulation bead can be taken internally, crushed and applied externally, and liquefied to irrigate the yin attribute spiritual material. It has many uses. Moreover, after each killing, the host can also extract fresh blood from the dead body and integrate it into the blood coagulation bead to improve its quality. It is recommended that the host pay attention to daily accumulation. Through the method of compression and extraction, the grade of this blood coagulation bead can continue to improve. Even when the blood and ki power inside it accumulates to a certain level, it itself becomes a very evil and yin magic weapon. Just letting the opponent look at it will make him lose control of his mind and lose all his fighting power. Collect the blood dragon phantom that had just been used to kill the blood wolf king, opened its bloody mouth and held the crystal clear blood bead. It swung its dragon tail and held it in Chen Mo's hand like a treasure. At this moment, the last trace of blood on the battlefield disappeared, and the blood formation also lost its power source to maintain its operation and collapsed. The blood bead spun in Chen Mo's palm and emitted an attractive red light. Indistinctly, Chen Mo heard a voice that tempted him to continue killing, and a strong bloodthirsty desire surged in his heart. Drop. The host's adrenal gland secretion rate is accelerated, and the cardiovascular flow rate is increased by 47%. The host is easily stimulated by the blood coagulation bead and is prone to the desire to destroy. It is recommended that the host seal the blood coagulation bead with a wood-attributed spirit box. Chen Mo was horrified and grabbed the blood coagulation bead to cover its blood light. The devil's things are really thrilling. If you are really obsessed with it, you will degenerate into a killer embryo that never stops. At that time, the whole world will be your enemy. Although he could not see the blood light, Chen Mo could feel that he was holding a beating heart in his hand. Its frequency was consistent with his own breathing, and the devilish sound of kill, kill, kill was constantly transmitted. Everything around him seemed to be covered with a thin layer of blood light in Chen Mo's sight, revealing an ominous feeling. Fortunately, Chen Mo took out a wooden box made of the trunk of a century-old locust tree from the storage bag in time. Once the lid was closed, the connection between the blood coagulation bead and itself was disconnected. The world is finally peaceful. The latest novel is first published on the 69th Book Forum. Chen Mo sighed and felt refreshed. He put the wooden box back into the storage bag without putting a seal on it. This palm-sized simple wooden box was made by Chen Mo using a piece of fine material dug from the trunk of a 100-year-old locust tree. It was not engraved with any forbidden spiritual patterns and was completely natural. However, because the material of the locust tree trunk itself is good, it naturally has the function of locking and gathering yin, and all kinds of negative energy inside the blood coagulation beads are locked in the box. By the way, we can't forget to plunder the earth lizard tribe. That 100-year-old locust tree is very good. Cut all the slices and take them away. Chen Mo was extremely greedy. Not only did he want to exterminate the tribe, but he also wanted to cut off the sacred object of the earth lizard tribe, the 100-year-old locust tree, the totem of their tribe. In this way, even if the surviving ground lizards return to the locust tree forest, they will not be able to rebuild the tribe, and they will be completely removed from the underground cave world. Returning to the ground lizard tribe to plunder spiritual materials is completely putting the cart before the horse. The host should not lose the watermelon while picking up sesame seeds. The strength of the blood wolf pack is slightly better than that of the ground lizard tribe. We should first go to the former's nest to plunder spiritual materials. All the suggestions of the chip are based on the maximization of the host's interests. Chen Mo did not think much about it and followed the route it calculated, trotting all the way to plunder the blood wolf nest. It was only an hour before the blood wolf pack came out of the nest. The nest was still filled with a unique fishy smell of the blood wolf, so no foreign creatures got there first. Chen Mo was the first and only non-wolf creature to enter this place alive after the blood wolf pack settled here. After twists and turns, Chen Mo finally found the residence of the blood wolf king at the bottom of a pit, which was the core of the blood wolf nest. Chapter 119: A Great Harvest. As the blood wolf king, the things he enjoyed were naturally the best in the entire nest. The ground was covered with soft cave lavender, which exuded a faint fragrance, which was completely different from the fishy world outside the corridor. The corners of the pit were also ingeniously decorated with fluorescent mosses of various colors, creating a stuffy atmosphere, which was very suitable for the Blood Wolf King and his spouses to live and exercise. Chen Mo was sharp-eyed and found that many lavenders were stained with fresh unknown liquid, which showed that this was once a love nest full of hormones. At this time, a slightly high pile of grass fell down, revealing a fluffy head. It was a blood wolf cub who had just turned 1 month old, and even his eyes were not open. Its nose sniffed for a long time and finally caught a strange smell on Chen Mo. Curiously, it dragged its short and weak limbs to Chen Mo's feet and called to him in a baby voice. Chen Mo subconsciously put the little finger of his right hand wrapped in the shroud into the blood wolf cub's chubby mouth, and felt a slippery tongue begin to lick it. According to the chip's comparative analysis, this wolf cub is 99.9% the offspring of the Blood Wolf King, with good talent, and has the ability to absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth as soon as it is born. The shroud contains war evil, ice evil, and yin spiritual energy. For the Blood Wolf cub, the taste is more tempting than breast milk. The foreclaws hold Chen Mo's big hand tightly, licking with the tongue, and moving the mouth, refusing to separate. The Blood Wolf King cub has the wind spiritual vein. At this time, its intelligence is not yet developed. If the host carefully raises it, it can recognize its enemy as its own. It is a good monster beast for transportation. The estimated training period is 3 years, and the cost is 308 low-level spirit stones. Chen Mo originally wanted to kill the wolf cub and make soup, but after calculating the ratio of raising it to the benefits, he found that the investment in raising it was worth a try, so he let the wolf cub hang on his body and began to explore the spiritual materials hidden on the ground. After a round, the harvest was not much. They were all the heads and body bones of some large monsters. There was no trace of flesh and blood on them, let alone tooth marks. They were well maintained. Chen Mo speculated that they were all the trophies collected by the Blood Wolf King. One was to show off his own military power, and the other was to intimidate the subordinate wolf pack and make them fear the consequences of rebellion. The material is quite solid, and the spiritual energy conductivity is also good. Take it back first and see if it can be processed into 7 or 8 bone talismans. Chen Mo was not satisfied with the harvest from the Blood Wolf King's lair. As a 9th-grade demon beast, it actually only has this little wealth. In terms of value, it is far less than the private money collected by its concubines in the nearby side rooms. It seems that the son can only pay for the father's debt. Chen Mo pinched the wolf cub's soft neck, poked its nose, and said viciously, "Ling." The Blood Wolf King cub has a faint herbal fragrance, and the various ingredients are snowling flower, bone-strengthening grass, blood essence seeds. It turns out that you, the gold-eating beast, are making trouble, spitting out all the spiritual stones and spiritual materials that should belong to me. Chen Mo wondered before that it was not an easy task to cultivate a blood wolf with the potential of a 9th-grade demon beast. It requires a lot of resources. But this one in front of him only needs 308 low-level spiritual stones to reach adulthood. It seems that it was fed before. Chen Mo had an absurd idea of eating the blood wolf cub alive. According to his simple logic, a medicine pot wolf cub is a moving spiritual material. Swallowing it is equivalent to taking all the resources that the Blood Wolf King has poured into his offspring. Please give up this unrealistic and naive idea. The Blood Wolf King cub has consumed most of the spiritual material's medicinal power. The resource utilization rate of direct consumption is extremely low. It is better to cultivate it peacefully until it matures. In order to increase the persuasiveness, the chip also hung a profit chart. The yield rate is from high to low. Cultivate as a spiritual pet, raise it to adulthood and sell it, and directly slaughter it to make a barbecue dish. Swallowing his saliva, Chen Mo gave up the idea of grilling the Blood Wolf King cub and let it hug his arm to absorb all kinds of spiritual energy in the shroud. The Blood Wolf King cub didn't know that he had just returned from the gates of hell. He still squinted his eyes and looked confused. He even felt that the yin spiritual energy in Chen Mo's chest was more concentrated and tried his best to drill in. With a small pendant, Chen Mo left the Blood Wolf's lair. Along the way, Chen Mo was not in the mood to tease the Blood Wolf King cub. After all, he had just killed the wolf cub's parents and skinned them. He could not pretend to be a loving adoptive father or a filial adoptive son. Afterwards, Chen Mo also searched the ground lizard tribe. Compared with the Blood Wolf's lair, the harvest was much simpler. It was basically a locust tree with the year written on it. Chen Mo chopped them one by one. It's just that the storage bag given by Guxi has enough space, otherwise it really can't hold so many spiritual materials. Patting the storage bag hanging on his waist, Chen Mo was very satisfied and felt that the trip was worthwhile. Calculating the distance, it is now dozens of miles away from the connection between the Gu room and the cave. If you want to go deeper, the risk factor will increase greatly. Chen Mo gave up the plan to continue exploring the cave world. There is no need to risk your life for more petty gains. With a generous daily income from the Gu room breeding farm, Chen Mo didn't have to fight hard at all. Even if he plotted against the two tribes of blood wolves and ground lizards, he didn't rely on force, but on wisdom. That's it. Chen Mo was humming a little tune as he was about to leave the bitter locust tree forest after a fruitful harvest, in a happy mood. The latest novels are first published on the 69th Book Forum. However, as soon as he stepped out of the forest, he found two lizard guards who had just returned from hunting. They were not on the tribe before, so they didn't know about the genocide. Seeing the strange two-legged sheep, they were very excited. They dropped the unknown cave creature corpses on their shoulders and rushed towards Chen Mo with a howl. Chen Mo had just walked out of the battlefield between the two tribes with corpses everywhere. His body was covered with blood, as if he had been soaked in blood. Therefore, he was full of temptation to the lizards. They wanted to stretch out their long forked tongues and lick the two-legged sheep clean from head to toe. These two lizardmen have good physiques and can be used for human experiments. It is recommended that the host capture them alive. As the first non-human alien race that Chen Mo had seen, the lizardmen had certain scientific research value. Chen Mo asked the chip to develop a research plan to analyze the lizardmen from the aspects of blood, physical strength, and resistance to magic. The two elite lizardmen in front of him happened to be the only two survivors in the tribe, and they should shine for Chen Mo's scientific career. Therefore, Chen Mo sprinkled 2 balls of soul-stirring dust to stun them, and then directly put them into a rag bag and carried them back to the Gu room. On the way back, Chen Mo also met Wang Fengnian. He saw 2 squirming humanoid creatures in the bag on the master's shoulder, and thought that he had abducted 2 women outside. He didn't dare to look at it for too long. After paying his respects, he hurriedly left the Gu room. Although Wang Fengnian was over 50 years old, he had a good eye. He guessed that Chen Mo wanted to vent his youthful vitality that had nowhere to vent, so he gave up the Gu room and didn't dare to stay any longer. Chen Mo was carrying a heavy object on his shoulders. Seeing Wang Fengnian's slightly strange eyes, he was confused. He asked a question, but only got an answer of "We are all men, we understand." He felt puzzled. Pushing open the door of room number 12, Chen Mo put down the 2 lizardmen, tied their limbs with fine iron chains, and began the extremely evil alien flesh experiment. Chapter 120 Physical Test. Chen Mo took out a bunch of bottles and jars from his waistband, lined them up, and placed them in front of the 2 lizardmen. The transparent glass bottles contained unknown liquids of various colors, and at the bottom of the bottles, there were also strange biological debris, emitting a dazzling luster. The 2 lizardmen captives only took a glance and felt their throats strangled by fear. One of the timid ones trembled with his legs, and a pool of light yellow liquid flowed down. "Don't be nervous, relax, it won't hurt," Chen Mo comforted, but the expression on his face was no different from that of a fanatical Frankenstein, which made the lizardmen captives tremble even more. This was the first time to conduct a live body experiment, and the experimental subject was a low-intelligence alien. Chen Mo was excited and curious. Extract blood samples, and start data analysis. Chen Mo pierced his thumbnail into the heart of a lizardman and drew out a drop of blood. Then, his eyes flashed blue, revealing the blood secrets of the lizardman. Under the 1,000-fold magnification effect of the chip, Chen Mo saw 2 spiral DNAs of the ground lizard man. One has a similarity of 46% with humans, and the other has a similarity of 78% with forest monitors. The ground lizard man is a branch of lizard monsters. During the evolution and reproduction, the upper limbs degenerated and learned to walk upright, but there are many genetic defects and the cultivation value is low. It is recommended that the host use it as a disposable consumable. Chen Mo's mind appeared in the chip-simulated lizard cave biological evolutionary map. A forest monitor lizard with slightly higher intelligence than its peers, for many years, raised its upper body to pick delicious fruits from the trees, and gradually mastered the skill of walking upright. Its weird behavior was rejected and hostile by its peers. Finally one day, as an alien, This maverick forest monitor, no longer associated with its companions who crawled on all fours, left the tribe, and began to live alone. However, by chance, it completed the mission of reproducing offspring with a female forest monitor, and passed on the skill of walking upright from generation to generation. Thousands of years later, the descendants of this weird forest giant lizard have become two completely different species from their ancestors. What's more amazing is that they have also developed intelligence, hence the name Earth Lizard Man. Although all of this is just the chip's guess, Chen Mo watched it with great interest and was impressed by the magic of life, reproduction, and evolution. Because the spiritual energy in the underground cave world is more abundant and the spiritual materials are rich, the probability of mutation of species here is higher, which can be summarized as species diversity determined by the external environment. The conclusion of the chip gave Chen Mo more motivation to explore the underground cave world. Seeing the magic of various species is only one aspect. The most important thing is that if a large amount of information on different species can be collected, the chip can even design the innate magic of non-human races, greatly enriching the magic database. In this way, Chen Mo can use the innate magic of alien races with the help of human bodies. Not only is his combat power stronger, but he can also be more flexible and changeable when changing vests to commit crimes. Unfortunately, the Earth Lizardman does not have the innate skills that I value, so I can only work on the physical body. Out of basic humanitarianism, Chen Mo was not so crazy as to use mortal warriors for physical experiments. Therefore, humanoid aliens like the Earth Lizardman became his only choice. He took out a blood-burning pill and let a relatively thin Earth Lizardman take it as a medicine to increase the activity of its qi and blood. Then, Chen Mo inserted all the extended silver needles into the hidden acupoints of the Earth Lizardman at once, agitating its qi and blood, and firmly trapped 89% of the blood in the torso at 3 key nodes, waiting for the next test. It is recommended that the host adopt a step-by-step test method to gradually improve the physical strength of the Earth Lizardman, and be careful not to use too much force, causing the physical body of the experimental subject to collapse. In the horrified eyes of the Earth Lizardman, Chen Mo implanted the 3 blood insects into the qi and blood nodes in its body, and then sprinkled a handful of Ganoderma lucidum powder on it to stimulate the blood insects to secrete growth hormones. This method of using the body fluids of goo worms to strengthen the body is also a secret of the goo grass lineage. Although it is not as magical as Ranku cordyceps, it is already good in terms of stimulating the potential of the body and improving the essence. In particular, its quick-acting feature allows Chen Mo to mass-produce a large number of meat shield cannon fodder. After absorbing the growth hormone of the blood goo worm, the skin of the ground lizard man swelled violently, and the fluctuations were so large that a large number of green scales on the surface of the body were torn. Blood flowed out like a waterfall, dyeing the first ground lizard man to undergo physical experiments a bright blood red. Drop. The blood activity of the experimental subject has reached its peak. Please activate its body potential immediately. Chen Mo muttered to himself, and through the power of his spiritual consciousness, he controlled the blood goo worm to travel in the body of the ground lizard man, massaging the acupuncture points around his body and stimulating his potential. In a short while, the body of the ground lizard man swelled up, and the essence value was close to the 9.0 mark. As a price, its qi C and consciousness C were completely shattered, and it became a walking corpse with a brute force but no intelligence. Chen Mo took out a token that controlled the blood worm, tapped his 10 fingers, and controlled the actions of the ground lizard man through the blood worm. However, as soon as its hands were raised an inch, the blood vessels in its upper body burst one by one, revealing its pale ribs. The latest novels are first published on the 69th book bar. The body of the experimental subject is on the verge of collapse and the countdown begins. 10, 9, 8, 7. Before Chen Mo could inject the solidifying glue into the ground lizard man to mend its body, the flesh and blood on its upper body fell to the ground like fallen leaves. The pieces of flesh and blood sizzled, and blood beads splashed everywhere, just like roasted suckling pork. The test failed. It is recommended that the host dissect the body of the experimental subject and analyze the cause. As soon as the chip finished broadcasting, the ground lizard in front of him gloriously turned into a pile of bloody and fleshy corpses. Chen Mo did not have the heart to continue to destroy its remains. The remaining ground lizards, seeing the tragic end of their companions, were so scared that they turned pale, rolled their eyes, and simply fainted. Forget it. In order to increase your survival rate, I can only disgust myself. There was only one experimental subject left, and Chen Mo did not plan to enter the cave to capture living things again. He pinched his nose and picked out a piece of ground lizard flesh that was still intact from a pile of disgusting rotten meat, and wrapped it in a ball of yin spiritual energy. The spiritual consciousness was released and penetrated into this piece of fresh flesh that was still beating slightly. Chen Mo sensed its various values in all directions without blind spots, providing a basis for theoretical analysis for the chip. Drop. The bloodworm secretes too much growth hormone, exceeding the limit of 79% that the experimental subject can bear. It is recommended that the host only implant one bloodworm in the next test. After finding the reason for the failure, Chen Mo's eyes lit up, and he took out another bloodworm and implanted it into the lower abdomen of the second Earth Lizard Man, and strengthened its body according to the previous process. This time, the growth hormone absorbed by the experimental subject was reduced by 2/3, and the degree of expansion of the body was very small. The Earth Lizard Man was able to maintain his rationality in the pain of physical enhancement and glared at Chen Mo angrily. You still have the strength to kill people with your eyes. It seems that you haven't reached your limit yet. Add a little more. Chen Mo was very satisfied with the tenacity of this experimental subject and implanted the second bloodworm into its brow. Roar, a hoarse wail spread from the depths of the guroom, followed by the laughter of Chen Mo's successful experiment. The lingering sound was chilling. At this moment, the guroom breeding farm seemed to have become a purgatory devil cave specially used to torture people. Chapter 121 3 years. When Chen Mo walked out of the 12th stone chamber of the A-class, his cheeks were rosy, his eyes were slightly red, his breathing was slightly fast, and he staggered out while holding on to the wall. Fortunately, Wang Fengnian had already left early, otherwise seeing Chen Mo's excessive indulgence appearance, he would definitely think that he was a young and arrogant man without restraint. Finally done, so tired. Chen Mo had exhausted too much energy after completing the physical experiment on the Earth Lizard Man, so he even staggered when walking. In order to control the growth hormone secreted by the bloodworm within a reasonable range, he had to use the token to adjust the activity of the bloodworm in real time and concentrate his mind. For 3 consecutive hours, Chen Mo did not rest for a moment and tried various ways to use the bloodworm to stimulate the potential of the Earth Lizard Man. Even with the chip providing reference values, he was exhausted. Looking into the sea of consciousness, there was little divine energy left, and the appearance was a layer of light white mist, as thin as a cicada's wing. He felt an itch in his arms, and suddenly a fluffy ball of flesh emerged. It turned out to be the wolf cub that had woken up, and it was looking for milk everywhere with its nose arched. Oh my! I almost forgot about this little guy. Because the live experiment was too exhausting, Chen Mo had not paid any attention to the wolf cub's existence before. Unconsciously, it crawled all the way along his arm and into his arms. If it weren't for the wolf cub's thick fat layer, it would have been hungry and howling for such a long time without eating during the growth stage of its larval stage. When Chen Mo was halfway through the experiment, it interrupted his operation and caused the second experimental body to collapse again. Where should I keep it? The guroom breeding farm was full of strange insects, and Chen Mo was really afraid that the wolf cub would be swallowed by the insects. After thinking for a moment, he decided to carry the wolf cub with him, which would not only make feeding convenient, but also increase emotional communication. According to the records of the Sutra Library, the most advanced blood wolf is only at the 12th level of key training. It is not capable of refining the transverse bone in its mouth or speaking human language. Its intelligence is no better than that of a 10-year-old child. My secrets will not be leaked by it. Chen Mo has a soul chip in his body, and his daily behavior must be different from that of ordinary people. In order to keep secrets, he still likes to be alone. Therefore, Chen Mo does not really want to cultivate spirit pets or contract close followers. Even the guroom breeding farm only recruits Wang Fengnian and his son to strictly control the possibility of leaks from people around him. In the demon sect, there are many disciples and vain masters with many minds. Chen Mo's cultivation is low, so he still has to act carefully. Lighting a communication talisman, Chen Mo reported the process of the trip to the cave to the stone monkey, the guardian spirit beast, and told it that the passage here can be open to the disciples in the sect. As a newly discovered virgin land, Chen Mo was the first to plunder and enjoy it. Although it no longer belonged to him alone, he did not have many regrets in his heart, thinking, no matter what your background is or how high your cultivation level is, you still have to drink my leftover soup. Chen Mo's only dissatisfaction was that the entrance to the newly discovered cave was located deep in the Gu room. Once the number of people setting out from here increased sharply, the daily meditation would inevitably be disturbed by the coming and going of people. Chip, adjust the summoning array to cover all areas except the entrance to the cave. When you are undecided, ask the chip. Chen Mo did not hesitate to ask and got the method to change the square wooden plate. On its smooth mirror-like surface, 3 inscriptions were added, and then a mid-level water spirit stone was inlaid to activate the array. The display of the summoning array in the Gu room was completely changed. Hazy mist rose from every corner of the Gu room, covering all of Chen Mo's private areas. As long as an outsider touched the mist, a red dot would appear on the square wooden plate as the center of the array, reminding Chen Mo that someone has broken in. In addition, the mist was still carrying the remnants of Chen Mo's breath, which showed that no strangers were allowed to enter and no one was allowed to disturb without sincerity. According to the etiquette of communication between practitioners, a mentally normal person would not trespass after sensing this breath. If he really encountered someone who was ignorant and forced to break in, Chen Mo could only beat him with a stick. He was confident that with Guzai, his chief master, as a scapegoat, there was no young generation in the blood robe sect that he could not afford to offend. Next, I will practice Qi in the sect peacefully. Chen Mo sighed, foreseeing the boring life of meditation and Qi training day after day in the next few years. But he did not have the slightest impatience. The road to immortality is long, and only patience and persistence can help practitioners climb to higher peaks. No matter how boring it is to practice Qi training while meditating, Chen Mo has to stick to it. However, compared to those poor disciples who have to go out to do tasks in order to have enough resources to practice Qi training, I am already lucky and much more comfortable. Chen Mo has a good mentality. In the following period of time, without having to work hard, practicing peacefully in the sect is actually a benefit that countless low-level disciples dream of. The boredom of practicing hard is nothing compared to losing your life while doing tasks. The latest novels are first published on the 69th book bar. After making mental preparations, Chen Mo began his routine practice. He placed pieces of Yinling stone around him to form a simple spirit-gathering array, and then lit a column of incense to concentrate his mind. Chen Mo started to practice the 9 Yin meridian forging technique. Wisps of gray mist were drawn out of the Yinling stone by Chen Mo, covering his cross-legged figure, like a dormant giant beast, constantly swallowing clouds and spitting out mist, absorbing the essence of heaven and earth. From then on, Chen Mo's practice life became extremely regular. In addition to practicing Qi, strengthening the body, and refining the yin souls in the yin-yang mask every day, he also cultivated insect beasts and blood wolf cubs. Horizontal ellipsis. 3 years of peaceful time passed quickly. In Guxi Cave, Chen Mo stood in front of Guxi cautiously, staring at his toes, listening to his master's instructions. Although he still wrapped his whole body tightly with a shroud, his figure was much stronger than 3 years ago. He stood simply with his hands behind his back, but he had a profound aura that was admired by the mountains. Guzai didn't know that the secret door he left on the Ronku cordyceps had been cracked by Chen Mo. Looking at this respectful new disciple, he was very satisfied, and the ghost fire burned more vigorously. He praised, "Over the years, you have completed the breeding tasks assigned by the seat very well. The master is old, and you should encourage the selection of the 19th Meridian Master." Chen Mo lowered his head, but his eyes did not fluctuate at all, because according to the analysis of the chip, Guzai's life breath was strong, and he could live for at least 100 years. He cursed in his heart, "The old thief is really cunning, empty talk, and random promises, just to trick me into working for him." Although he wanted to say this back in his heart, Chen Mo still held back and replied meekly, "The disciple will live up to the expectations of the master and practice hard. By the way, you and Henner are not from the West Coast, right? Recently, something small happened in the subcontinent. You two can go together and take a look for the master." Guzai suddenly mentioned the subcontinent, the place where Chen Mo was born, which startled him and made him want to return home. Chapter 122 Homeward Journey. On the vast blue ocean, a gray-white giant whale, with most of its back exposed, split the water and cut through the waves. Its ventilating hole is as big as a bathtub, and it sprays water columns dozens of feet high from time to time. The condensed water column rushed up to the sky, and the speed was so fast that even the seagulls flying over the giant whale could not react in time. They were washed away by the rapids and fell into the sea like drowned rats. The water splashed everywhere, which was spectacular. At the head of the giant whale, there stood a man in a black robe, Chen Mo. He had already embarked on the journey back to the subcontinent, and the means of transportation was the power source of the original cross-sea giant ship, the Grey Whale. After the transformation of Deacon Wei, nearly 10 ghost fire ants of different sizes parasited on the back of the Grey Whale. Together, they can control the Grey Whale's every move. Chen Mo, relying on the token that controls the behavior of the ghost fire ants, indirectly controls the actions of the Grey Whale. In layman's terms, he has become the captain of this whale ship. The huge changes in his circumstances, identity, and status reminded Chen Mo of the embarrassment of being abducted to the demon sect several years ago. During the entire cross-sea voyage, he was confined to a small flesh chamber in the belly of the Grey Whale, and there was no space even for him to practice the set of blood-activating and muscle-relaxing boxing. He was locked up in a dark lounge like a prisoner. The only advantage was that there were ghost fire ants delivering 3 meals to his door, and he lived alone, without having to squeeze with the noble children who had just left the life of luxury and had not yet experienced the cruelty of cultivation. Now, as Guzai's direct disciple, Chen Mo directly has the power to control this Grey Whale, and can rest in any corner of the whale's body, and no one dares to say no. Recalling the past and savoring the present, Chen Mo has a different taste in his heart. I am returning home in glory this time, and I can also be regarded as borrowing the name of Guzai to bully others. Looking at the water and sky in the distance, his hometown is just ahead, Chen Mo muttered to himself, and recalled the details of the task that Guzai had just assigned. Back then, when Chen Mo entered the sect, Guzai and Steward Wei teamed up to rob new blood from the righteous path, which aroused strong protests from the Tanya Sword sect. After a battle between the high-level members of the Divine Power period, they redivided the enrollment ranges of the two paths of righteousness and evil. The subcontinent where Chen Mo was born was assigned to the Blood Robe sect. Therefore, in order to protect its own territory and prevent the righteous path from secretly abducting students, the sect sent many inner and outer disciples to stay in the subcontinent. However, the subcontinent has been undercurrents and turbulent recently. Not only has the merger between mortal empires accelerated, many disciples of the Blood Robe sect have even disappeared mysteriously, and all kinds of bad news have been reported back to the sect one after another. The subcontinent is a famous place of absolute spirits. The concentration of spiritual energy is only 2 or 3 points better than that of the heartland of the Kyanitian Empire. Conventional forces, that is, mortal warriors, are at most a little more numerous. Stationed in the subcontinent where cultivation is difficult, these inner and outer disciples are only after some meager sect contribution points. Their average cultivation may not be very high, but it is enough to deal with mere mortals. Even if they are surrounded and intercepted by the army of warriors and cannot escape, they can always spread the news. Therefore, the recent disappearance of disciples and the destruction and annexation of mortal countries attracted the attention of the top leaders as soon as they were reported back to the sect. The task of investigating the details fell on Guzai. Guzai's first thought was if there is something wrong with the sect, the disciples will do it. The subcontinent where the incident happened to be the place where Chen Mo was born. Who else could do this hard job of running errands? Guzai had an acquaintance in the subcontinent. It was the boundary monument that intercepted the cross-sea giant ship for him to inform him. In order to know the route for the righteous way to transport new blood, Guzai also fed the boundary monument a lot of spirit stones. Chen Mo's trip was to visit this earth-attributed monster who was greedy by nature and treacherous in the name of his master, to find out the cause of the changes in the subcontinent. Of course, the consultation fee must be paid, but Chen Mo does not have to pay out of his own pocket, and Guzai will reimburse it with public funds. In terms of doing things for the Guxiao lineage, Guzai, this cheap master, is very generous and never deducts Chen Mo's activity funds. Ling. Grey Whale, 12th grade monster, corresponding to the 12th level of Key Training, Essence. 15.2, Key Essence. 12.4, Shen Yuan. 3.2, Status, symbiotic with ghost fire ants, with traces of yin attribute inscriptions on the spine, belonging to the magic transformation of the creature. As a proud deep-sea giant whale, being stepped on by a human who is not even the size of its eyes, the Grey Whale did not have the slightest anger. His eyes were calm, and even looked a little dull. This is the sequelae of engraving inscriptions on the flesh and accepting magic transformation. Although the cultivation level has improved a lot, ranking at the top of the key training period monsters. Relying on its huge size and strong vitality, the gray whale can now even support 2 or 3 rounds under the hands of the supernatural power cultivator, but it has lost the most important spiritual wisdom of the living creature and has become a walking corpse. In this life, there is absolutely no hope of breaking through the magical power period. If not, Chen Mo would not be able to control the gray whale's every move through a small token. In terms of combat power, in the sea, Chen Mo can only fight this huge monster on equal terms with all his means. It's a pity that the gray whale can't go ashore, otherwise, with its company, I can walk sideways in the subcontinent. The latest novel is first published on the 69th book bar. Stepping on the smooth and delicate skin of the gray whale, feeling its full and almost overflowing vitality, Chen Mo wished that he could stay with the gray whale every day. With such a mount, there is no need to worry about travel safety. From a distance, Chen Mo, standing proudly on the head of the gray whale, has a bit of the demeanor of a cultivator. Wearing a black robe, simple but not lacking in grandeur, Chen Mo's slender figure is set off with a more immortal and Taoist style, without a trace of dirty worldly air. After leaving the sect, Chen Mo no longer covered his whole body tightly, but revealed his true face. The explanation to the outside world was that he practiced special skills and his face became much paler. Compared with when he first entered the sect, Chen Mo's childishness disappeared completely, and his face became 3 points more sharp, with clear edges and corners, and a lot of toughness. Although his skin is fair, it is not morbidly feminine, but a kind of flawless purity. Especially with the cold and fierce temperament of the demon sect monk, Chen Mo has a layer of evil and unruly flavor, which is unique. There was a faint sound of footsteps behind him, light and rhythmic. Chen Mo didn't need to look back to know that Lu Zhen'er was coming. On the west coast, there are not many practitioners willing to take transoceanic transportation to return to the subcontinent. The passengers on the gray whale are all those who have no hope of practicing and want to find a remote corner to spend their old age. When they walk, they are all heavy. The only person on the boat with light footsteps was Lu Zhen'er, who was returning to the subcontinent with Chen Mo. Chen Mo was very gentlemanly and formed a screen, so that the sea breeze blowing in his face disappeared into thin air when it reached a distance of 10 feet in front of Lu Zhen'er. Therefore, although the giant whale was moving fast, Lu Zhen'er's black dress did not flutter in the wind. "Junior sister, are you going back to the island? I'll make the arrangements." If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 123, Things in the Water. The cold and aloof junior sister beside him did not reply, but just stared ahead silently. Lu Zhen'er was wearing a black veil made of a special material. Chen Mo could not see her expression clearly without using the eagle eye technique. Therefore, after carefully observing for a long time, Chen Mo still did not know whether Lu Zhen'er really wanted to go back to the island. Too lazy to guess the complicated thoughts of this woman, Chen Mo directly changed the swimming direction of the gray whale and headed for the island where Lu Zhen'er was born. That place can be regarded as your hometown, but all your relatives are dead, and they died at the hands of our common chief master Guzai. Chen Mo muttered maliciously. Strictly speaking, Lu Zhen'er was also born in a family of cultivation, but Guzai wiped out her entire family when he robbed the new blood of the righteous. On that day, the ancestor of the Lu family abandoned Lu Zhen'er and fled alone, but he had to do so because Guxi slaughtered the Kigan practitioners. However, this behavior of disregarding family affection and only caring about his own survival made Lu Zhen'er understand the cruelty of the cultivation world and the ruthlessness and righteousness of the practitioners. Even if they are blood relatives, they can be abandoned when they are really at the end of their rope. On the island, the Lu family disappeared, and it became Lu Zhen'er's sad place. If Chen Mo had the manners of a gentleman, he should avoid a small island where he stopped halfway. However, Chen Mo wanted to visit Yugong on the island and recruit blacksmiths for the Jingnan Marcus mansion, so he could only ask his junior sister to return to the sad place. Chen Mo has been observing Lu Zhen'er with the corner of his eyes. As the familiar outline of the island gradually emerged, he found that Lu Zhen'er's thin body trembled involuntarily. It seemed that she was afraid of returning home, and her heart was far from being as calm as her actions showed. "Junior sister, the gray whale won't stay ashore for too long. I'll go find Yugong. You can do whatever you want. If you want to set off, send a signal and I'll be there at your beck and call. The island is isolated between the subcontinent and the west coast. It is not a must-go place on the return journey, and it has nothing to do with exploring the changes in the subcontinent. By stopping here, Chen Mo has already abused his power for personal gain and used the public vehicle for personal gain. The passengers on the Grey Whale are all marginal figures in the sect and the bottom of the warriors in the ancient city. No one dared to question Chen Mo when it stopped at the shore for a while. However, Lu Zhen'er's status is not much different from Chen Mo's, so Chen Mo still had to inform her. Tearing up a piece of amplified sound talisman, Chen Mo announced the decision to temporarily dock. Sure enough, no one came forward to ask questions. As for Lu Zhen'er, she remained silent and walked back to her lounge with light steps. Ling. When Lu Zhen'er left, the frequency of her footsteps changed slightly, and it was a little hurried, reflecting her inner restlessness. It is recommended that the host stop irritating her with words. Chen Mo did not say anything to break Lu Zhen'er's pretending to be calm. He took out the array disc that controlled the Grey Whale and carefully adjusted the direction of advance. The sea is vast. If the angle of the Grey Whale's advance deviates a little, it will not be able to reach the predetermined destination. If it were not for the chip marking the navigation chart, it would be a problem for Chen Mo to successfully reach the subcontinent when he first controlled the Grey Whale. Gently stroking the surface of the array and injecting Qi Yuan, a mini Grey Whale emerged. Every once in a while, it would swing its tail fin up and down and advance a distance of 100 meters. This is a simulated picture of the Grey Whale's advance presented by the control array, which is convenient for the captain to control the navigation situation. There are 7 red light spots on the back of the Grey Whale's phantom, representing 7 parasitic ghost fire ants. Chen Mo can change the direction of the Grey Whale's advance by simply touching the red dots. Around the phantom, shadows of varying sizes occasionally passed by, representing various creatures in the sea. Seeing the giant Grey Whale, they consciously made way at a distance of dozens of feet. Ling. A shadow of a humanoid creature was found, and the probability of it being a human reached 76%. The chip intercepted a stunning simulation of light and shadow. By magnifying it, Chen Mo found that this shadow had human limbs and a head, and curiosity surged. There are no deserted islands inhabited by humans in the sea area, and mortal ships cannot sail here. Where did the person who fell into the water come from? Could it be a water dragon? But why does its lower body have 2 legs? The last time he discovered the community of lizardmen, Chen Mo made a small fortune. Now that he found traces of humanoid creatures, he immediately turned into a shark that smelled blood, urging the Grey Whale to change direction and chase after it. With the Grey Whale's help, Chen Mo would not be afraid even if he encountered a cultivator in the supernatural power period. At worst, he would throw his mount down and be a scapegoat. This 12th-grade demon beast, which had been transformed by magic, was the property of the sect. When it was damaged while on duty, it was naturally reimbursed by the public treasury of the Gukeo lineage. Chen Mo was not stingy in using it. The Grey Whale swam all the way until Chen Mo found a gray-black object that was fluctuating on the sea level, and it stopped. With just the naked eye, Chen Mo really couldn't tell what it was. It's impossible to be a mermaid. Chen Mo sighed, realizing that his previous guess was just wishful thinking. The boundless sea between the subcontinent and the west coast has an aura concentration that is shockingly low. Aliens like mermaids, who are extremely hungry for water aura, will not settle here. Since we are here, let's see what it is. Although this gray-black unidentified object is likely to be marine garbage, Chen Mo doesn't want to let it go. The latest novels are first published on the 69th book forum. The shroud stretched out, rolled it up gently, pulled up the Grey Whale, and then tapped the array disc in his hand, making it turn around and continue to head to the island. As soon as he came into close contact, Chen Mo felt that the object in front of him looked familiar. After removing the seaweed wrapped around it, a shiny black fishing net was revealed. The fishing net was not transparent, so Chen Mo did not know what the object wrapped inside was. But Chen Mo recognized this fishing net. It was the talisman fishing net that he made by perforating mullet scales at the invitation of Mo Bai and then hammering it by Yu Gong. It has good ductility. Even if a bulging human-shaped object is stuffed inside, the mullet scale net does not break. After being salvaged, it is still rising and falling rhythmically, with a frequency consistent with the breathing of ordinary people. Mo Bai has been supplying seafood for 10 years before he asked Yu Gong to make this talisman fishing net. Could it be Mo Bai's side? Chen Mo was shocked and felt that the object in the fishing net was not in a good condition and had a weak breath of life. Through clever strength, Chen Mo opened the fishing net from the buckle and revealed the creature inside. Sure enough, it was Mobai who had to deal with him on the island. But Mobai's condition was very bad. His face was pale, his sea of ki was exhausted, his body was covered with knife and sword scars, and because he was immersed in seawater for a long time, his skin wounds were swollen and infected. Mobai's burly body swelled up again, and Chen Mo almost couldn't recognize him. Water, 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 Mobai murmured unconsciously with his lips cracked and swollen like sausages. Chapter 124 The Snatch begins. A rejuvenation spell landed precisely on Mobai's wound, preventing it from bleeding and becoming inflamed. Then, a stream of water formed by the condensation of water spirit moistened Mobai's throat and relieved his painful murmurs. Where is this? Opening his eyes, Mobai felt that the sunlight on the ocean at noon was particularly dazzling. He subconsciously wanted to block the light with his right hand, but he was too weak to raise his hand. Hey, Chen kid, you're not dead? Why is your face so white? No, only the dead can see the dead, I can't be. Mobai still looked unserious as before, not like the performance of an ordinary person who had just escaped from the gates of hell. He just woke up, but the words he said had nothing to do with the current focus. Fortunately, Mobai still recognized Chen Mo's face. Although his skin was much whiter than when the two first met, Mobai still connected the person in front of him with the young man in his memory from Chen Mo's delicate facial features and facial contours. Whatever you think, you are still alive. Chen Mo was too lazy to talk nonsense with him. Seeing that Mobai would not die for a while, he poured a basin of cold water on his face and waited for him to tell the reason why he was injured and fell into the sea. Mobai touched his crotch and found that it was still familiar. Then he looked around and found that it was a familiar sea area where he often fished. Finally, he realized that he was still alive and couldn't help but shed tears of surviving a disaster. Chen boy, go and save Lao Yu, he was captured by those lowly mortals. Mobai felt the unfathomable aura on Chen Mo and realized that he was no longer the entry-level apprentice who had just awakened his spirit and built his foundation. He thought about it and asked him for help. They are just a group of warriors in the 5th grade divine power realm, but they can use a strange talisman to seal the ki sea of the ki practitioner. That's why I have to jump into the sea to survive. Chen Mo caught a trace of dragon energy from Mobai, which corresponded to his description, and said indignantly, Brother Mo, don't worry, Yu Gong's life is in my hands. Those dragon court lackeys will not be rampant for long. Chen Mo is not a good man who is brave enough to do what is right. He agreed to Mobai's request because he had the idea of recruiting Yu Gong. After embarking on the path of cultivation, Chen Mo was destined to leave home all year round and could not look after his relatives in Jingnan Marcus Mansion at any time. When his cultivation was low, he had no capital to take care of his family, but now, he can. Yu Gong has to repay the favor of saving my life. What's the difference between forging iron on an island and forging iron in the Marcus of Jingnan Mansion in Jingnan country? Chen Mo was confident that it would be very easy to recruit Yu Gong, who couldn't even make it on the west coast, with the help of repaying a favor and the identity of a direct disciple of the demon sect. I can also find immortals with peace of mind by cultivating some quick training high-level warriors through elixirs to protect the Marcus Mansion. Although the return to the subcontinent this time will not be long, at most 1 year, Chen Mo wants to leave a protective force for his relatives that can deal with most worldly crises. Yu Gong is the person Chen Mo chose. Although his cultivation may not be very high, he is very good at mass refining spiritual weapons. He can concentrate on forging iron in the second half of his life and can refit all 100,000 Jingnan soldiers and protect the Marcus Mansion by himself. Saving your life in exchange for your forging career in the second half of your life is also an equal exchange. Before the person was rescued, Chen Mo had already figured out how to make Yu Gong work for his relatives. Chen Mo, where did you make your fortune these years? You actually own such a ferocious monster. Why don't you help me? What do you think? The effect of the rejuvenation technique was immediate. Mobai's injuries were initially healed. Although his face was still pale, he was able to struggle to stand up. The dragon energy seal on his ki sea was at its last moment, and he was finally able to squeeze out a trace of ki to put away the mullet-scale fishing net. Seeing the huge and deep-breathing gray whale for the first time, Mobai couldn't let it go. He touched it here and there, and almost dug a piece of meat to taste. The word curious was written directly on Mobai's face, and he began to ask about Chen Mo's experience. With a laugh, Chen Mo explained, "Where else can I make a fortune? Isn't it just to become a disciple of Guzai of the Blood Robe sect? The ghost fire that killed countless people on the island was my master, Taoist Mobai. Do you want me to take you in as my master?" Mobai recalled the bloody night that he couldn't bear to look back on. Guzai's fierceness, after so many years, still frightened him, and he hurriedly refused. No, I haven't lived enough. I would rather die than become his disciple." As soon as he finished speaking, Mobai regretted his words. In front of his direct disciples, slandering the master, and the master and disciple are both fierce people from the demon sect, the consequences are quite serious. Mobai's face turned pale as snow, and even his breathing became weak. His eyes were erratic, and he didn't dare to look at Chen Mo again. Meeting an old friend again, Chen Mo was not so petty. Besides, Guzai, the master who pitted his disciples, was not worth his careful protection. He laughed and pretended not to hear Mobai's offensive words, and turned the page. In order to cover up the unintentional mistake just now, Mobai began to explain what happened to the two. The latest novel is first published on Liuji 9 Shu Bar. Last night, Yu Gong and I were having a picnic on the beach when a group of mortal warriors suddenly came. They tore up a talisman, making it impossible for us to perform any magic, and then knocked out poor old Yu. Mobai's eyes were flustered, and he was still frightened. He sighed, "If I hadn't practiced fighting skills hard, my skills would be comparable to those of a high-level warrior. Otherwise, I would have been like old Yu, and fell into the hands of a few mortals." Chen Mo could also guess the next story. It was just that Mobai saw that his way back to the coastal town for help was blocked, so he could only wrap himself tightly with a mullet-scale fishing net and jump into the sea to drift to escape. Of course, if he hadn't met Chen Mo, the severely injured Mobai would have only had his wounds eroded and died in the belly of a fish. How could the lackeys of the Dragon Court attack the island? And they also captured Yu Gong? Could it be that they were attracted by his ability to refine spiritual weapons? Chen Mo thought about it carefully and felt that there must be something hidden in this matter, and thought of the newly established General Works Bureau of the Kayanitan Empire. The main force of the army in the Mortal Empire is the warriors, and the demand for spiritual weapons is extremely high. However, the refiners who can refine spiritual weapons all have the strength of the key training period, which is naturally incompatible with the dragon energy. Kayanitan Longting's own training is slow and costly, and it is not impossible to send warriors to kidnap people abroad. Rob army? Interesting. Chen Mo thought of this, and put away the mentality of traveling all the way, and began to look forward to meeting the kidnapper. Of course, Chen Mo was too lazy to explain these twists and turns to Mobai. Seeing that he had recovered some vitality, he sent him to wander around in the gray whale casually, so as to avoid being annoyed by Mobai's various questions. It is so difficult to find someone in the vast ocean. Fortunately, the chip calculated the ocean current that brought Mobai and pointed out a general direction of advance. Whether you can catch up depends on Yu Gong's fate. Chapter 125, The Reappearance of the Insect Shadow. After 1 year of entering the sect, 3 years of cultivation, and 4 years of precipitation, Chen Mo's cultivation and vision are no longer the same as before. Although Mobai's narration is not long, he smelled the conspiracy of Kayanitan Longting from it. I will not let the enemy do what they want. This is the simplest way to go against the Kayanitan Empire. This policy is also what the demon sect has always advocated. As long as the disciples of the sect kill the Dragon Court lackeys outside the sect, they can exchange the corresponding sect contribution points in the Blood Clothes building with their heads, identity nameplates, and the photo stone records of the killing. This is a disguised incentive mechanism that allows the Blood Clothes sect members to find trouble with the Kayanitan Empire, regardless of right or wrong. Otherwise, how can they go to the Kayanitan border to thresh the grass every year? Not to mention the matter of recruiting Yu Gong. Even for this considerable contribution point reward, Chen Mo will not give up this opportunity. The gray whale moved forward at a great speed, and the outline of the coastline appeared in front of Chen Mo. According to the speed of the ocean current and the length of time that Mobai was injured and unconscious, the captives of Yu Gong have not gone far. If they want to catch up, they can only use the island as the center of the circle and rely on the speed of the gray whale to conduct a dragnet-style investigation layer by layer. Although this search method is stupid and time-consuming, it is the only feasible method now. Since the speed of mortal ships is not as fast as the 12th grade monster gray whale, Chen Mo's chance of successfully encircling is still very high. The island is already in sight. Chen Mo plans to put down the people who left the whale to the island first, and then drive the gray whale to chase the dragon court running dogs. However, from a distance, the quaint coastal town that I had visited once was already on fire everywhere, and the small port was filled with a sound of chopping and killing. It seems that there is no need to chase them. Those villains are still staying on the island. They are powerful and dare to kill and set fire in the coastal town. Chen Mo admired the arrogance of the dragon court running dogs very much and was amazed. Although the rampage of Guxi 4 years ago caused heavy casualties among the Kigan practitioners on the island, the city defense weapons at the warrior level were not weakened much. The people who kidnapped Yugong dared to be so rampant and violent, so I think they must be quite powerful. Damn. The host's guess is totally wrong. The island is thousands of miles away from the Immortal Gate. The Kigan practitioners can't threaten the Qianning Fengjian warriors who possess the Dragon Key Talisman. They don't have to hide their identities like rats crossing the street. And in terms of the strength of the warriors, the subcontinent and the islands can compare with the Qianning Empire. Even in the capital of Jinan Kingdom, these villains can still kill and burn without scruples. As expected of a chip, the well-reasoned analysis made Chen Mo speechless, and he began to worry about the safety of Jingnan Marcus Mansion. It seems that when we return to Jinan country this time, we must not only leave enough guards, but also clear out all the evil spirits. Chen Mo felt that the burden on his shoulders was much heavier, and his small body could not bear it. He thought, it seems that I have to pull up Guxi's tiger skin and continue to deter the evil villain after I leave the Marcus Mansion. Although he did not have a good impression of this cheap master with ulterior motives, Chen Mo was ruthless when he consumed his reputation. He scratched the gray whale's back with his left toe, indicating that it should stop 5 miles away from the coastline. If it continued to move forward, once it ran aground, it would take a lot of effort for Chen Mo to fish it out. The gray whale could not go ashore to help, but it was more than enough to sprinkle water from a distance to indicate that reinforcements had arrived. Just as Chen Mo flew into the air, the gray whale raised its head, lifted most of its head out of the water, and sprayed a blue water column, which suddenly exploded over the port. The heavy rain was like a waterfall, instantly controlling the raging fire. On the side of the ship, on the deck, and on the embankment, the figures who were still fighting fiercely were all soaked. The sudden artificial rainfall made the noisy fighting in the port stagnate, and the dingling dang and crackling sounds of weapons clashing all stopped. However, due to the fierce fighting, this fast and heavy rain washed away a lot of blood, and the gurgling blood flowed into the sea, dyeing a large area of the sea red. The people fighting were divided into 2 factions. One faction was all dressed in black robes and had standard weapons in hand. They were the Qianning running dogs who attacked Mobai. They advanced and retreated in moderation, and had the demeanor of a soldier. They attacked in pairs. Although they were few in number, they had the upper hand. The other faction was dressed differently and had all kinds of weapons, including swords, spears, halberds, and swords. They were warriors from the island. However, they lacked coordination, and even though they had the advantage in numbers, they were still forced to retreat by the other faction's rear guard. Seeing that several black-robed pioneers were about to board the ship with 5 or 6 captured weapon refiners and leave the port, the locals who were related to the prisoners and had a sense of camaraderie with them roared and waved their swords desperately, but still failed to break through the port's blockade. Mobai glanced from a distance and found Yu Guang's figure, as well as some weapon refiner apprentices and senior mortal blacksmiths who had met on the island, and quickly signaled Chen Mo to go and rescue them. The latest novels are first published on the 69th book bar. At the outermost edge of the crowd, there were 3 low-level Kigan practitioners who were performing giant force techniques on the local warriors, giving them amplification, and summoning wooden vines to create a quagmire to delay the black-robed robbers. However, these newly formed spells were affected by a dragon key talisman suspended in the air. Before the spell model could gather the extremely thin spiritual energy of heaven and earth, the pale yellow dragon key rushed out of the talisman, crushing the spell model at once, forcing these key practitioners to repeatedly construct the spell model. However, these key practitioners below the 6th level of key training did not have much key yuan to begin with. How many times could the low-level spell models be condensed? It was impossible to exhaust the amazing dragon key reserves in the dragon key talisman. It's time for me to save the situation. An interesting plan came to Chen Mo's mind. He did not intend to use a cool range spell to clear the field instantly, such as the bone-dissolving yin wind, that could corrode all the black-robed people. He also did not want to transform into a human-shaped beast, using the Shroud's attack and defense to rush into the crowd and tear apart the enemies blocking his way with his flesh palms. Instead, Chen Mo took out more than 10 soybean-sized black balls from his storage bag, and shot them at the dense crowd at the port with the help of the water sprayed by the gray whale. Halfway through, the black balls swelled up in the wind and turned into buffalo-sized ghost fire ants, which accurately smashed the black-robed men in armor. The seawater hit the shore, bringing with it a group of hideous bloodthirsty monster insects. This scene was like yesterday, and the blood and fire created by Guxi 4 years ago awakened from the memories of local warriors. Although the picky ghost fire ants only chose to kill Kigan practitioners last time, and no warriors or mortals were harmed, they witnessed the tragic death of the Kigan master under the insect jaws. Seeing the nightmare of the past, they hurriedly retreated. Even if friends and relatives were about to be captured on the enemy ship, no one dared to step forward, for fear of being bitten to death by the ghost fire ants. The black-robed men in groups of 3 or 4 had no idea about the ghost fire ants. They just thought it was an ordinary spell and that the dragon energy talisman would defeat them all. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.